Basically everything for your home or business, even solar. Quality work and professional services that make you feel great about your decision to work with Crosscom.
Call Crosscom.
630-871-5500. Give them a chance to earn your business. If your repairs are due to storm, fire, or flood damage, you need to
call Crosscom.
They're licensed public adjusters. They work for you, not the insurance company. Crosscom will work to get you the money you deserve, the maximum payout. They know the insurance companies and how to deal with them. They win for you.
Call Crosscom.
Crosscom Construction and Public Adjusters.
This is Dan Lights with Crosscom. You can trust us with your home or business for high-quality work and fair prices. It's the only way we do business.
630-871-5500. CrosscomPublicAdjusters.com.
When it comes to industrial coating and finishing, cutting corners isn't an option. That's why leading manufacturers across the Midwest trust D&D Industrial Coatings in Racine, Wisconsin. From powder coating and liquid painting to blasting and custom finishing, D&D Industrial delivers top-tier protection and performance, fast, precise, and built to last. With over 40 years of experience, ISO-certified processes, and state-of-the-art lines, D&D handles everything from OEMs and petrochemical to agriculture, marine, construction, medical, and government specs. Family-owned, nationally trusted. Whether it's a short run or high volume, your parts are in expert hands, finished on time and finished right. Visit them today, ddindustrial.net. Again, that's ddindustrial.net. Or call them at 262-637-0686 to get your custom quote today. Again, that's 262-637-0686. D&D Industrial Coatings. Engineered to protect. Finished to impress.
This is Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. As the national political temperature hit dangerous levels, Erica Kirk offered a moment of grace with just 3 words. Speaking of the man who shot her husband at the memorial this past weekend, I forgive him. With those 3 words, the young widow did more than attempt to restore calm in an increasingly violent era in American politics. She testified to what America has lost and what America could regain: faith. Charlie Kirk had faith in his country, faith in his wife, but mostly faith in the Lord. He gave that testimony throughout his public life, and an assassin killed him for it. Rather than call for tribal violence and retribution, however, Mrs. Kirk called us back to faith, her husband's faith in America and faith in God. Erica Kirk, a young widow with every reason to despair, stood on a global stage and demonstrated what we have lost and what we must regain. That would be faith, Christ-centered faith.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be cloudy, warm, and humid with a thunderstorm in the afternoon, reaching a high of 77. Tonight stays cloudy with a few showers expected, dropping to a low of 64. Tomorrow, expect low clouds and slightly cooler temperatures with a chance of a brief shower or two as we reach a high of 71. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and Kamala, Mamala, for some of us, is on her highly anticipated book tour, and it didn't come a moment too soon. So glad to see her back on the circuit, aren't you? She sat down with Maddow Hayes, that mashup of Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow. I can never pick the two apart, to talk about her book. And, of course, front and center was the passage pre-release to generate buzz for her book, 107 Days, the definitive story of the Kamala Harris campaign. Yeah. The excerpt that generated so much buzz that she wanted to pick P-Butt, but she couldn't because she's a black woman and he's a gay honky, and that's just too much for the American people to handle. So this is how she explained that passage to Rachel Maddow Hayes. I'm throwing darts at a board. And she did it, this is why I've missed her. It was a vintage Kamala word salad where she says a controversial statement that she made, she did not make. She explains then how she did make it and repeats it, which is no easy feat. But I think you'll agree with me that she stuck the landing here.
Will you consider running in 2028?
That's not my focus right now.
Oh, no, that's
not my focus at all.
No. There it is.
To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for President of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for President of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but
that
we had such a short period of time, and the stakes were so high. I think Pete is a phenomenal public servant. And I think America is and would be ready for that. But when I had to make that decision with 2 weeks to go, and maybe I was being too cautious, I'll let our friends, we should all talk about that. Maybe I was. But that's the decision I made. And I, as with everything else in the book, I'm being very candid about that.
Yeah.
With a great deal of sadness about also the fact that it might have been a risk.
Aren't you glad she's back? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. I didn't say that, and now I'm going to repeat what I said. In fact, I did say that. And in fact, again, I'm not prejudiced. The problem is that the American people are prejudiced, which is the only logical conclusion you can draw. What's the risk? And it's funny, I was wondering how quickly P-Butt was going to pick this up and run screaming from it. And he did fairly quickly, saying he was surprised to read a passage from Mamala's book. My experience in politics has been that the way you earn trust with voters is based mostly on what they think you're going to do for their lives, not on categories. Well, isn't that interesting? P-Butts got to distance himself from Mamala, and the only way to do that is to distance himself from identitarian politics. Of course, the same identitarian politics that he otherwise is wont to play. She's got the black female and he's got the gay dude thing, and they both use that as a political cudgel in their various ways, haven't they? So she's restated her complete lack of faith in the American people because they're prejudiced. What would be the risk? It's just too much, but it's not because he's gay. But of course, that's the only thing that makes any sense. By the way, it is worth noting that despite the fact that she is a black woman and a stone-ass idiot, she got nearly half of the popular vote. So it clearly wasn't the fact that she's a black woman that was holding Kamala back. In fact, it's a marvel that a stone-ass idiot like Kamala Harris could get nearly half of the popular vote, could come as close as she did. Yeah, she lost all the swing states. But for someone as transparently, pathologically dishonest and vacuous, unable to communicate coherently to get as many votes as she did get is still troubling. Clay in Libertyville, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Morning, Dan. I actually was talking with an old San Diego cop who said that she was actually really good as a prosecutor. And as soon as she hit district attorney and then so on, she just, as soon as she got political, she just turned terrible. But my initial comment is, spoken like a true Democrat. Wow, claps all the way around. Talk about the person's sexuality and her own race. Nothing about his policy, nothing about her policy. This all goes back to that old Simpsons meme. Am I to blame? No, this is society's fault.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Clay. Clearly. Well, I mean, she as much said it. Think about the landscape. Unfortunately, she was running for president of America. And America is this hopelessly bigoted nation, which is why she couldn't pick the guy she really wanted, not jazz hands from up north there, but P-Butt from the heartland. Jim in LaGrange.
Dan, the reason why you didn't understand that word salad was because you didn't study the Venn diagram of what she said.
Yeah.
And if you would have done that, you would have gotten it. I think you need to go back to some of the classics, too, because I missed some of those. Those are fun. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks for the call, Jim. You know, I am still bound by what has been, I guess, Jim. That's my problem. She was asked about her plans 28, because I know you're waiting with bated breath to hear about that.
Will you consider running in 2028?
That's not my focus right now.
I know
it's not my focus at all.
I know
it really isn't.
I'm just going to.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're not considering it now, but are you saying when you decided you're not going to run for governor of California?
Correct.
Were you saying you are never going to run for anything ever again, or were you just saying I'm not going to run for that office right now?
That was the decision before me, and I made the decision not to run for governor of California. By the way, there are a lot of great candidates running, and I love my state, and we want somebody to definitely follow in the footsteps of Gavin in terms of standing up and understanding the power that California has to stand up to what we're saying in D.C.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So good to have her back. She's another one. You never stop talking. Please never leave the scene. And you know why I'm excited about it? Because the new Marxist Party is less excited about it. Headline on the Hill: Democrats express frustrations with Harris for picking fights in upcoming book. Yeah. So now we're having, Mayor Pete is having to distance himself from her and identity politics by extension. And Josh Shapiro saying she's got to account for Biden's health and what she knew and how she handled that. And now Biden's health and that fraud that was perpetrated is revisited, not to mention just the nails on a chalkboard that is Kamala Harris. I mean, if you think that doesn't repel voters. Steve, Southside.
Dan, good morning. I thought she picked a gay honky.
Yeah.
If Tampon Tim is not gay, he's as close to being gay as you could get without being gay.
Thanks for the call, Steve. Marvin, Burlington, Wisconsin.
Yeah, can anybody remember, was it Palestine, Ohio, where he didn't show up for like weeks?
East Palestine, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big job as a transportation secretary and fell on his face. And then we're supposed to think that that's okay to be the next guy in line for the president. That's her judgment. That's her judgment. I mean, unbelievable. And then here,
of course.
And then what self-respecting man? I know this is going to sound sexist, but I don't care. What self-respecting man, what with a job like transportation secretary, takes maternity leave? I mean, it's crazy. And
I understand. Thanks for the call, Marvin. I understood that Chasen's labor was very difficult. I saw the aftermath, but that's what I understand. Mayor Pete, your favorite accomplishment of Mayor Pete's tenure as Secretary of Transportation. I mean, he did get, 7 charging stations for $5 billion built or something like that. Yeah, right. But of course, that's not the measure. He's a tremendous public servant because he's a gay dude who can speak in complete sentences and who Kevin Costner endorsed for president. And so he's relevant somehow. As if there's some sort of performance-based standard. in politics in general and in leftist politics in particular. I mean, it's all intersectional score, and that really has not changed. But this is sort of like the sour grapes of Hillary Clinton after 2016. And, I think this, aids and abets our efforts here to marginalize this new Marxist party, not as much as their tendency towards violence as the means to political ends, but it's certainly a contribution that Kamala Harris is making. Coming up at 5:38, Kimmel's back. Take your calls on that. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 67 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Trials underway for a former Waukegan police officer who's accused of murder. Dante Salinas is charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of involuntary manslaughter in the shooting death of Marcella Stinnett. Officials say Salinas also shot and injured Stinnett's girlfriend. Lake County State's attorney said Williams was simply a passenger and did not commit a crime. Neither Stinnett nor Williams had a weapon. Cook County residents are still awaiting their property tax bills. Officials with the Cook County Assessor's Office say that delay is caused by a technology upgrade that's more complex than anticipated. Property owners are being urged to prepare for the bill when it does show up. Property tax bills are due 30 days after the mailing date. Interest will not accrue until after that due date passes. Taxpayers who do not escrow their taxes are advised to save monthly in anticipation of that bill. This report is sponsored by Audible. If you're headed to the airport, travel with a good love story. Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. Best-selling modern rom-coms, the hottest romantasy series, and anticipated new releases. Start listening free with a 30-day trial at audible.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next.
Hugh Hewitt warns that China is flexing.
Xi Jinping has capped a week of frenetic diplomacy by presiding over one of China's biggest military parades, projecting his nation's growing power in a show of solidarity with fellow strongman Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Everyone's got to pay attention to what China is doing and what China is saying. And it's very ominous.
The Hugh Hewitt Show. Afternoons at 2, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Tony Dreyfus, founder and president of Metropolis Coffee Company and a proud new customer of Signature Bank. We're a 19-year-old specialty coffee roaster located in the heart of Chicago. Some of your favorite restaurants and cafes serve our coffee. As a small business manufacturer, we understand the importance of working with the right bank, and that's why we made the move to Signature Bank. We were tired of the impersonal service that our large bank had provided. A friend referred us to Signature Bank, and their team was on site to understand our operations firsthand. They provided us the working capital to continue our successful business operations and to fuel our ambitions for innovation and growth. We now have the flexibility to grow at our own pace. That personal touch, you can't find that at a large bank, but we found it at Signature, and we can't thank them enough.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Let Signature Bank turn your business vision into reality. Visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are high interest payments becoming too much to bear? Luckily, there's a way for consumers struggling with over $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans to significantly reduce the amount they owe if they qualify. Qualifying for this debt relief program, which the credit card companies prefer to keep secret, will only require you to pay back a fraction of what you owe with one affordable monthly payment. You don't have to file bankruptcy or need a debt consolidation loan. Consumers can now take advantage of this financial debt relief during the current economic downturn and rising inflation. If you owe $10,000 or even $500,000 in credit card debt or personal loans, call the Debt Relief Advocates Helpline now for this free information and to see if you qualify. Call 800-466-4131. 800-466-4131. Again, that's 800-466-4131.
Protect your liver and give it the support it deserves with Active Liver from New Nordic. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or at newnordicusa.com.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be cloudy, warm, and humid with a thunderstorm later on reaching a high of 77. Tonight stays cloudy with a few showers expected and a low of 64. Tomorrow expect low clouds and cooler temperatures with a chance of a brief shower or two, reaching a high of 71. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Before we get to Kimmel, we didn't get to it yesterday. We had more pressing business to attend to, but of course, Bears notched their first victory on Sunday. And the best thing about that is you get a little variety in the mood of the parody songs that Dave Swirsky does on his Insta page. So Dave Swirsky, upbeat after the Bears' victory against the Cowboys, and leaning on a little ditty made popular by the Romantics for this parody song.
Bears! Thought of Bears. My friends, they're now 1-2. The Bears got right. Won this one 31-14, son. Got Ben Johnson's first win last night. Yeah! Scored so quick we were still on our first beers. And Caleb played so good, almost brought us to tears. For he true. The Bears are now 1-2. He called a flea flicker too. Ben's willing to take a chance. Watch the ball, flipped up slow, back it goes, then launched another TD. Let's dance, yeah. Keep flea flickering to deafening cheers. Defense came to play for the first time this year. Treat me true. The Bears are now 1-2. The Bears are now 1-2. This team, they finally came true. Wow!
Yeah, and by the way, today you may want to stop by the Wiener Circle. Wiener Circle posting pre-game, if Caleb throws 4 TDs on Sunday, we will give away free hot dogs on Tuesday. That's today. Wiener Circle giving away free hot dogs, and their response to Caleb Williams' performance, oh, blank, Vienna beef, want to chip in, LOL. Anyway, so Wiener Circle Tuesday because of the Bears' victory. Okay, speaking of entertainment, although that is loosely affiliated with Jimmy Kimmel, the word entertainment. Jimmy Kimmel's back. Disney announcing yesterday plans to bring back Jimmy Kimmel tonight. And it is an open question as to whether or not he is going to address the reason for his suspension and the things that he said about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Boy, if I was Disney, I'd suggest that he didn't. But if I know Jimmy Kimmel based on past behavior, I think it's going to be very difficult for him to resist the temptation. Happy Jimmy's back, and we can put this to bed as Jimmy Kimmel, some sort of cause celeb for the First Amendment. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Interestingly, Sinclair said it will continue not to air Kimmel's show on its ABC affiliated stations, the ABC affiliates that it owns. It's unclear whether Nexstar is going to return the Kimmel show to the ABC stations that Nexstar owns, ? Of course, with respect to Sinclair, they made very specific demands of Kimmel as the basis for even considering his return. They wanted him not only to apologize for what he said, they wanted him to make a personal contribution to Turning Point USA. Well, I don't know if he's made a personal contribution to Turning Point USA. I tend to doubt it. We know that he hasn't apologized. That's the other thing. Other than saying, if I was in the position of somebody with a financial interest like Disney, other than saying what I said was incorrect and I apologize for that, and then moving on, if I'm in Disney's position, I really wouldn't want him to address this much more. And if I was Jimmy Kimmel, I know at this point he's made so much money that it doesn't matter. He's sort of insulated from corporate punishment. And were he to tempt fate and get sidelined again or sidelined permanently by Disney and by Disney, which owns ABC, then, somebody else is going to pick him up because of all this attention associated with him, and because, he's been, martyred professionally because he dared to cross the line against Trump, and, all these 400 celebrities who signed the letter to get Jimmy Kimmel back on the air immediately, and all of this, the silliness and these feeble-minded arguments about the First Amendment as it pertains to this issue only serve to benefit him. I mean, my posture is, number one, Brendan Carr, FCC, say nothing, do nothing. Not the only one. We're sort of waiting with bated breath to see if this is going to be addressed. On the other side, I don't want to hear from the FCC. Brendan Carr, say nothing. Let this guy return to the ignominy in which he was operating prior to this dust-up. Talking about how bad his ratings are, well, all this attention isn't going to make him worse. The audience is already heavily skewed left, but even they're sort of based on the data we talked about yesterday, the ratings data. But they're sort of tuning in once a month. Those that tune in multiple times, it's a much smaller percentage of the overall audience, which is, shrinking like Rick Moranis. So just let it be. Walk away. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. By the way, Trump was asked about this by Jonathan Karl from Disney-owned ABC News, in scare quotes. And, of course, Karl dutifully tried to make this a free speech issue. And Trump dutifully denigrated Jonathan Karl, which was entertaining.
Settle this free speech question, because you've said that you restored free speech in America.
Yeah.
Is that free speech including for people who are harshly critical of you, for your political opponents, for people who say things you don't like?
I've become immune to it.
Unfairly?
I've become immune to it. There's never been a person that's had more unfair publicity than me, and that's why your network paid me $15 million, or $16 million, I believe, to be exact, George Slopadopoulos, and that's why CBS paid me a lot of money, too. And that's why I sued the New York Times 2 days ago for a lot of money. Because I'm winning. I mean, I'm winning the cases. And the reason I'm winning is because you're guilty, John. You're guilty. ABC is a terrible network, a very unfair network, and you should be ashamed of yourself. NBC is equally bad. I don't know who's worse. I think they're equally bad. And, for you to stand there and act so innocent and ask me a question like that. But look, you paid a big price because you were dishonest, John. The reason I won that lawsuit was because you were dishonest. You were proven to be dishonest. And so you can't sit back and just say, oh, well, what do you think? Like you're some wonderful person. You're not a wonderful person. Frankly, you're a terrible reporter. You know it, and so do I. Okay.
That's entertainment. Oh, boy. By the way, an important part of this story has become the violence from the left associated with Jimmy Kimmel's suspension. And everybody kept saying it was a termination. Jimmy Kimmel's gone, the show's been canceled, and so forth. I kept saying, read what they actually are putting out in their statements. Suspended indefinitely, yes. I mean, maybe he won't be back on Sinclair-owned stations, but this isn't over by any stretch. Of course it's not. But the guy who shot up that ABC affiliate in Sacramento because he was upset that Kimmel was suspended. And so, on the left, if you're upset about something, then and you start from the premise that the ends justify the means, then, yeah, you go send a message to ABC News by indiscriminately firing into their office building. Former legislative director for the California Teachers Union? For a California Teachers Union? Sounds right. Prosecutors say the left-wing suspect in the ABC Sacramento incident left a handwritten warning in his car naming Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Attorney General Pam Bondi as targets. he was released in California. Of course he was. It's California. If it would have happened in Chicago, you would have been released here. You promise to show up for your court date. You promise not to do anything bad while you're ROR'd pending pending trial. No, of course. We take you at your word. He was released at the state level, and then he was rearrested by the FBI. Good. Especially when there's evidence that you had political assassination on your mind. And of course you did. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line, and text line. Roy in Glen Ellen.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you. What do you think of this theory? Does Kimmel go the total other way and scorch Kamala, the book, Peabody, all Democrats? And then this gives the vehicle for Democrats tomorrow to say, look, he made fun of us. We didn't have anyone suspended. I don't know.
Oh, well, thanks for the call, Roy. I don't know if he's capable of that sort of jujitsu. I think more what you'll get is thank you to all those who sent in cards and letters, and all my friends in the entertainment industry who signed that letter and rallied to my defense, and so on and so forth. These difficult times, and he'll make himself a patron saint of the First Amendment, as the D.C. press corps has been doing for him in his absence. That's what I suspect. I mean, why would the self-indulgence stop now? Keith Oberman, remember him? He deleted a social media post yesterday appearing to threaten Scott Jennings, "Your next MFer." Boy, what a way with words Keith Oberman has. What a balanced individual. You know what? We got to pull up that Ben Affleck impersonation of Keith Oberman from SNL. That was Ben Affleck's best work as an actor. Hysterical. Because it was, my sense, it was only about 5 degrees of exaggeration from who Keith Oberman really is. Remember his show, worst person in the world and all this stuff? What a ill-mannered, woefully underinformed, self-indulgent, hysterical douchebag this guy is. Your next MFer. Then he deleted it, but not before it was captured. But keep mugging to the camera, he said. And then he tried to cover his tracks because it hit him in a moment of clarity. Those are fleeting for Keith Oberman. Gosh, it sounds like I'm threatening to assassinate Scott Jennings. That's not good. I don't want to get a visit from the FBI, which would be otherwise warranted. So he then posted, after he deleted the "Your next MFer," "Now we get the fascists off Real TV. That mean your career is next, Jennings. Send a tape to Real America's Voice. But keep mugging to the camera, amateur." Oh, it's just about taking him off the air or getting him off the air. We're going to get the real fascists off the air. Wait a second. So you want Jimmy Kimmel back on the air, and it's terrible that anyone would try to get Jimmy Kimmel off the air. And then in the same breath, you're trying to get off. What do you expect? Again, this is who they are. Corey in Woodlawn.
Hey, morning, Dan. I had a comment just about Kimmel, but after hearing Trump give that guy what he deserved, I am so glad every day when I wake up to know that this guy is my president. Because the conservatives needed a fighter. That for all of his flaws, he is the best fighter in the ring. He doesn't let anything go. And all of these little slices that they're constantly picking at him 24 hours a day, I am so glad that he fights these guys back tooth and nail. Not even funny. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Corey. Craig, Mount Greenwood.
Oh, hey, good morning, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. Listen, there's a reason why they threw this half-dead fighting dog back in the ring and everything like that. It's not because you got these big shots up there with all the threats being like lawsuits and that they did things wrong and free speech, all this bulldog and everything like that. The guy can't make you laugh or anything like that to save himself. They threw him back in there because he's going to flop all over the place and everything again and all that. And this time they can just use the real excuse. You don't know what you're doing with comedy. You're not funny. You're a political hack, and now we got the cane for you to pull you off stage. You're gone. That's what they're doing.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so, Greg. Well, the political hacks at Disney are going to say you're a political hack. They're fellow travelers. Why have they been platforming him for these many years, despite those low ratings we discussed? I mean, maybe the show makes a little bit of money. Maybe it doesn't. It seems hard to believe if it's true that, as reported, that CBS was losing $50 million a year on Colbert, who had better ratings than Kimmel. But maybe it does. I don't know. I don't know the revenue model. I don't think they brought him back to fire him. Not to mention, so you fire him, then you get into, as opposed to the indefinite suspension, you're going to have to pay out, more likely just as a path of least resistance, you're going to have to pay out some balance or some percentage of the balance on his contract. And then you're going to pay somebody else to fill in for him, pending a formal replacement, and you're going to go through that whole process. I don't think they're going to do that. Not to mention, to fire him now would be seen as some sort of capitulation to Trump, because anybody who's criticized by Trump on the left becomes a heroine of the left and, virtually untouchable. Now, they may make such a clown of themselves that they have to be muted a little bit. People need to sort of quietly walk away from them. Like that daffy comedian who held up the mock severed head of Trump. What's her name again? That's my point. What's her name again? You get it? Quietly walk away from her. But that's not going to happen with Kimmel. By the way, on the more important issue of the continued violence tendencies of the left on full display, I mean, this is no longer something to just, roll your eyes at and laugh at, is it? British rock singer Morrissey has been forced to cancel 2 scheduled U.S. shows owing to what have been described as credible threats to assassinate him on stage. The canceled concerts were set for Friday at Foxwood Resort in Connecticut and Saturday at Boston's MGM Music Hall. Credible threat on Morrissey's life. There was a report also notes that a threat to kill Morrissey was made by a deranged leftist on Blue Sky prior to the singer's City Folk appearance in Ottawa. And a 26-year-old man was arrested and charged with making those threats up there in the estranged Brewland. Morrissey has been very critical of the left over the years. And don't think those Blue Sky addled leftists have forgotten about him or anybody else. George in Naperville.
Yes, Dan, I know all Americans felt deeply. Where have you gone, Jimmy Kimmel? Our nation turns its lonely eyes to you.
What a beautiful singing voice you have, George.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
8 for Women is hosting their annual dinner on Thursday, September 25th, and you're invited. We're gathering at the beautiful Union League Club downtown. That's 65 West Jackson Boulevard for what's always a really special night. This year's speaker is Dr. Robert Royal, who founded the Faith and Reason Institute in Washington. He has some fascinating insights on faith, culture, and the issues we're all talking about. Here's how the evening unfolds. At 5 o'clock, you can meet Dr. Robert Lawler, our medical director, an amazing person with some amazing stories. Then we'll have drinks and good conversation at 5:30, followed by dinner and the program at 6:30. It's really about supporting women in our community. Getting tickets is easy. Just go to helpaidforwomen.org. That's helpaidforwomen.org. You can grab dinner tickets, try your luck with drawing tickets, or if you're feeling generous, check out the sponsorship options. September 25th, Aid for Women's annual dinner. Hope to see you there. Visit helpaidforwomen.org to join us.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call now at 800-533-6605 for a free consultation. For 17 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and a Christian-owned company. Don't get stuck in the endless cycle of payments. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Christian-owned Total Financial Freedom now at 800-533-6605. That's 800-533-6605. 800-533-6605.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life. AM 560, The Answer.
As promised, Affleck as Oberman on SNL in a dispute with his co-op board.
And now, Countdown's worst person in the world. To Newsweek senior White House correspondent Richard Wolff. Once an actual journalist, Mr. Wolff is now a full-time water carrier for the Nazi wing of the Republican Party. Hey, Richard, how much is Halliburton paying you? I hope it's not paying you in oil!
Okay, that was his, that was sort of the end of it. He did this whole riff, if you remember, argument with his co-op board president over having his cat, Miss Princess Perfect, in the apartment. It's really, as I said, it's Ben Affleck's best work. Maybe we'll play the extended clip later in the program. Coming up at 6:06, we'll turn our attention to Trump and Tylenol. Now 6 a.m.
He's back. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Jimmy Kimmel will be on the air tonight. ABC bringing his show back less than a week after suspending it over controversial comments about Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin.
The company releasing a statement saying, quote, "We made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. It's a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy."
That's Fox's Todd Pyro. Some Kimmel fans and supporters were upset over his suspension, calling it censorship. Sinclair-owned ABC stations will not air Kimmel's show tonight. The man on trial charged in the second Trump assassination attempt will address the jury again this morning in closing arguments in a federal court in Florida as Ryan Ruth acts as his own lawyer. He called just 3 witnesses before arresting his defense. President Trump is warning pregnant women not to take Tylenol or generic acetaminophen.
Unless it's absolutely necessary. Don't do it.
The president's direct plea comes as his administration's top health officials warn of a potential link between Tylenol taken by pregnant women and infants with a rise in autism rates. The maker of Tylenol says sound science shows acetaminophen does not cause autism, and other researchers say the rise in autism rates is due to better understanding of diagnoses.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. President Trump is not there this morning. He's in New York, where he'll address world leaders at the UN General Assembly the day after a high-level conference there in New York was critical of Israel as it keeps waging war against Hamas in Gaza.
Several U.S. allies like France, the U.K., Canada, and Australia moved to recognize Palestinian statehood. The U.S. boycotted the event, saying the recognition of a Palestinian state makes it harder to end the war in Gaza.
That's Fox's Madeline Rivera. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 67 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Scattered showers today, high of 74. Federal agents deployed tear gas at protesters last week and yesterday outside the Broadview ICE Processing Center, forcing the crowd to scatter. Fox's Mike Tobin is there with the latest.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement says protesters began slashing tires. They blocked the entrance to the building, threw rocks, cans, and bottles. They shot fireworks, even, according to agents, used tear gas. So ICE agents used their own tear gas, rubber bullets, and pepper spray to get the scene at the temporary facility under control. 16 people were arrested. Charges include assaulting a federal officer. With the chaos that unfolded outside the facility, ICE has released to me the identities and backgrounds of 6 people who were held in the facility while protesters were demonstrating on their behalf, all of them in the U.S. illegally.
President Trump has expressed interest in sending in the National Guard troops to help Chicago limit crime, even mentioning those plans at Charlie Kirk's memorial service this past Sunday. There could be a new building coming to the Miracle Mile. The Chicago Tribune reports residential developer AMLI Residential is awaiting approval from city officials before they break ground on the proposed 56-story skyscraper. The mixed-use building would include 199 parking spaces with a garage entrance on Erie Street and 50 affordable units to meet its obligations under Chicago's Affordable Requirements Ordinance. The Illinois Department of Public Health Immunization Advisory Committee has voted unanimously to recommend updated COVID-19 vaccines for all Illinois residents ages 18 and older. The state health department will be considering the committee's votes when releasing their official recommendations for Illinois later this week. News is a service of almostfreeteeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have a Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO or FEP, you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Learn more and check if you qualify at almostfreeteeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Join AM 560 on Thursday, October 2nd in Glen Ellen for a conservative conversation, an evening of insight, inspiration, and ideas on how conservatives can unite around shared values to advance a common agenda. Speakers will include Pastor Lorenzo Sewell of 180 Church in Detroit, Jeannie Ives, and John Anthony, with each bringing a unique perspective on faith, policy, and community leadership. Get your tickets today at 560theanswer.com/conversation. That's 560theanswer.com/conversation.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft. If that happens, LifeLock gives you the U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims. Your agent handles it all. In fact, they're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. It's nice to have an expert like that on your side. Save up to 40% off your first year with promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Michaela's Mobile Spa, Michaela! Michaela got a quick business insurance quote from Progressive and chose from over 30 customizable coverages. Sure, it helps she's her only employee and does literally everything. But while others would rest on their laurels, Michaela was hard at work saving big. So take that, hypothetical other employee who doesn't exist. Be your own Michaela. See if you could save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
Welcome back to Ask Hasselus.
That big online store has special days with ridiculously low prices. So why don't you?
We do.
You do? When?
Every day. Our 35 beds from the top 5 brands start at $393. Free next day delivery, too.
Wow.
Yeah. Plus, through Monday, get a free box spring or take an equal amount off an adjustable base.
I guess you could say that now is a prime time to buy.
Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you at Hasselus.com.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Xumo Play.
Taking a look at your drive in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with traffic and service of Fox Valley Coins. 14 minutes inbound Edens Lake Cook to Montrose. Edens outbound Montrose to Lake Cook, you're looking at 13 minutes. A 10-minute ride inbound on the Kennedy Montrose to the Byrne Interchange. On the outbound Kennedy Byrne Interchange to Montrose, less than 10. Eisenhower inbound Wolf to the old post office, you're looking at 14 minutes, and a 15-minute travel time on the Eisenhower outbound from the old post office to Wolf. No delays on the Stevenson inbound 355 to Lakeshore Drive, you're looking at 25 minutes, and a 22-minute ride Stevenson outbound Lakeshore Drive to 355. 14 minutes on the Dan Ryan inbound from 95th to the Burn Interchange, and 11 minutes Dan Ryan outbound from the Burn Interchange to 95th. Traffic is a service of Fox Valley Coins. This is a great time to bring in your scrap gold jewelry and sterling flatware. Cash or check offered on the spot. FoxValleyCoins.com. I'm KT. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now here's the latest forecast from QC Kinetics.
Today will be cloudy, warm, and humid with a thunderstorm in the afternoon, reaching a high of 77. Tonight stays cloudy with a few showers expected, dropping to a low of 64. Tomorrow, expect low clouds and slightly cooler temperatures with a chance of a brief shower or two as we reach a high of 71. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Cause they got the beat, the campus beat, the campus beat. Yeah, the campus beat.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. You know, I brought up the book, The Closing of the American Mind, by former University of Chicago academic. Well, that's where he graduated. Alan Bloom. He went on to an academic career. The Closing of the American Mind was like a seminal book, particularly for conservatives, that was written in the late 80s, 1987 to be specific. And was certainly a topic of discussion by the time I got to university about the state of college campuses and by extension the state of American culture, the closing of the American mind. So I brought this up. I don't exactly remember the context with Professor Richard Epstein last week. And I thought, you know, I'd like to go back. I haven't read that since college. I'd go back and reread some of that. Because just thinking about it, I wonder how prescient Bloom was about what was to come and what has indeed come to pass over the last 38 years. So I pulled a couple passages. How prescient was he? Pretty prescient. Nostradamus-esque. From Bloom, Closing of the American Mind. Picture a 13-year-old boy sitting in the living room of his family home doing his math assignment while wearing his Walkman headphones or watching MTV. He enjoys the liberties hard-won over centuries by the alliance of philosophic genius and political heroism, consecrated by the blood of martyrs. He is provided with comfort and leisure by the most productive economy ever known to mankind. Science has penetrated the secrets of nature in order to provide him with the marvelous, lifelike electronic sound and imagery production he is enjoying. And in what does progress culminate? A pubescent child whose body throbs with orgasmic rhythms, whose feelings are made articulate in hymns to the joys of onanism or the killing of parents, whose ambition is to win fame and wealth in imitating the drag queen who makes the music. In short, life is made into a nonstop, commercially prepackaged masturbational fantasy. I don't know if he was talking about Boy George, the drag queen making the music back then, but that description and what's transpired over the last 38 years, I would argue, is just an exponential increase in what Bloom details in terms of where we are. The 13-year-old sitting in the living room with his family doing his math assignment, except for maybe the part of doing this math assignment with his family in the living room. You know, maybe the freaks and geeks days are over, but otherwise he gets where the culture was at the time and where it was going. Appetites being served in, you know, the absence of critical thinking, the absence of any sort of restraint on desires or conduct. One more. Freedom of the mind requires not only, or not even especially, the absence of legal constraints, but the presence of alternative thoughts. The most successful tyranny is not the one that uses force to assure uniformity, but the one that removes the awareness of other possibilities. Well, that is exactly what has happened on college campuses and within so many civic institutions, all of the mediating institutions in America that are dominated by the left. The awareness of other possibilities has been removed fairly successfully. The ideas that spring from conservative thought that so many on the left have never heard and can probably navigate their way through life without ever hearing them, without ever hearing an alternative. We again, I've said this before, we sort of start from the premise, well, that everybody's heard all the arguments, and then some people just come down on central planning and other people come down on free markets. They haven't heard all the arguments. Some people have heard very few of them, and none on the right. That's a failure of the conservative movement, yes. It's also an illustration of what these institutions become when they're dominated by the left. The elimination of awareness of other possibilities. So I thought this piece, I mean, since we're talking so much over the last 10 days about Charlie Kirk's political assassination, and Charlie Kirk made his bones on college campuses, seems to me it might be nice to take stock of the college campus. Turning Point USA chapters or not. And of course, in many cases, including at the high school level now too, difficult to get a Turning Point chapter started. A lot of opposition. And I'm not just talking about from the student body, of course. Piece by John Ellis in the Journal. He's a professor emeritus of German literature at UC Santa Cruz. The politics that dominates college campuses is a different kind of beast than the idea of learning to disagree respectfully with one another. It begins not with traditional issues of governance, but instead by pitting different groups of people against each other. It starts off by identifying a group of people who are wronged and another who are wrongdoers, the oppressed versus the oppressors. I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum. This is not new, but it bears repeating. That hasn't changed. The kind of politics that dominates college campus, hatred isn't a matter of style, of making arguments too aggressively, or of carelessly insulting people who think differently. No, campus radicals make hatred part of the substance of their political thought. Hatred is at its core. This is not a point that Professor Ellis is making. This is not some sort of, excessive overreach by these neo-Marxists on campus. It's not a bug, it's a feature. If you ask a campus radical to give up hating, you would be asking him to give up his political framework. And that would be equivalent to telling him to give up his beliefs in radicalism. Hatred is the point. You can't ask radicals to seek common ground with intellectual opponents when the whole point of their political thought is to alienate people from one another. The hate that is central to the politics of college campuses is largely responsible for the change in our larger culture. We're all on one big college campus now, Andrew Sullivan. Democrats, the party most closely aligned to campus politics, now rarely engage the other side in a discussion of policy difference. They don't bother to tell Republicans what their alternatives are to closing the borders or to ending big city crime. They concentrate instead on their loathing of President Trump, opposing anything and everything he does. Assassinations are made more likely by the politics of hate that has been slowly spreading from college campuses to national culture, And Professor Ellis asked the question, how much longer can we tolerate a system of higher education that is poisoning America? And even, I would say, in the 80s, he was late to the dance. You got to go at least back to the 20s in the Frankfurt School. But I digress. The point is where we are now and what we're going to do about it. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. What the left's going to do about it is what they always try to do, because they can't sell themselves honestly. Yeah, hatred is the point. That's not very good marketing, which is why they project. And they attempt to muddy the waters with state-run media outlets like WBEZ. Their review of what's going on college campuses. Illinois professors face threats after landing on Charlie Kirk group watch list. They're focused on the 50 instructors from public and private colleges across Illinois named in an online database dubbed Professor Watch List, created by a group affiliated with slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk to unmask quote-unquote radical professors, WBEZ has found. Oh boy, what great investigative work. It was hardly a secret. And they detail these professors that made the list for various reasons. By the way, the highest number of instructors from a single institution came from Northwestern. Of course it did. Northwestern in the news, the value of my degree declines. And the whole point here is to say this is coming from the hate on campus and the threats of violence and the discord, no pun intended, is coming from, these conservative rabble-rousers on campus that are threatening the halcyon settings in Evanston and elsewhere, making it uncomfortable for these wonderful educators leading these institutions of higher education and enlightenment. Yeah. Okay. Look, somebody on the professor watch list because of something they did or said, of course they're instructing. It's fine. It's called transparency. And there's a lot of Trojan horsism that goes on college campuses. We were talking about that with Texas A&M last week. And by the way, Texas A&M's president has now resigned after that gender ideology course on campus. That was a Trojan horse course. It pretended that it was going to be one thing, and a student documented that was something very different when you got into the classroom. That professor has now resigned, and he should resign. That president has now resigned, and he should resign after initially saying, basically there would be no consequences for the professor who engaged in this sort of duplicity. So this is what they're trying to do, is to muddy the waters. Both sides. It's a problem. At minimum, it's a problem on both sides. Probably more the right than the left, but at minimum, both sides. This is their angle. You've heard it since Charlie Kirk's assassination. You hear it all the time when there is a violence committed by an avowed leftist. And there's been a lot of violence committed by a lot of avowed leftists of late across issue, as we were discussing yesterday. Pick an issue, any issue, and you'll find a leftist prosecuting their case with violence. Oh, and by the way, the same time, WBZ completely, they would say, shows the expanse of and their objectivity, the expanse of their coverage and their objectivity. But what it really shows is a complete lack of self-awareness. The one hand, they try to muddy the water. On the other hand, they do a story talking to Jewish college students about hostility on campus. Jake Reimer, University of Chicago, first-year student. He and two friends walked past Gaza Solidarity encampment on the Hyde Park campus after Saturday morning religious services in May of last year. No one from the encampments disturbed them, and then he said the three students, he said the next evening, a student confronted him in their dorm common area, accusing him of agitating. What was the evidence of his agitation? He wore a yarmulke, and his two friends dressed in suits, their attire indicating Jewish observance. They took pictures of him and showed him the pictures. This was agitating the Free Palestine crowd. Reimer, who heads up the student group Maroons for Israel on University of Chicago campus, said other incidents on campus have troubled him as well. Memorials to Israeli hostages, including small children and infants, regularly defaced or torn down. For a week in late April, U of Chicago chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine pitched a tent in the quad painted with what Reimer described as anti-Semitic caricatures of Jewish individuals, large noses, blood coming out of their eyes, things along those lines, he said. And they interview other students who've experienced, similar anti-Semitism on campus because they, want to be fair and balanced, to borrow a phrase. But there's nothing fair and balanced or particularly enlightened going on college campuses these days. I mean, in certain quarters on college campuses, I don't want to say it's, categorical, but in terms of the campus culture, who dominates it and what that domination looks like, I mean, it is something that I'm not even sure Alan Bloom could have conceived 40 years ago, even though he had a real insight into where this whole thing was going. Well, we're here now. Not a good place. The closing of the American mind, as Professor Richard Epstein, said last week when I invoked that, where are we 40 years after the closing of the American mind? And his response is, it's even more closed than it was in 1987 when Alan Bloom wrote the book. Sort of gives lie to this favorite shibboleth of mine, not mine, but people uttering it. The idea that the most recent point in time is the most advanced point in time. We're always making progress. Are we? Culturally? On campus? What's our culture like at University of Chicago, at Northwestern, at U of I? What's it like on campus as compared to where it was in 1987 when the closing of the American mind came out? Thinking about our culture generally. Better or worse? More aligned with foundational values or less aligned? Progress or regress? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line. Tom in Blue Island.
Hey, Dan, good morning. You mentioned Bloom from the 80s, and there's another adage you reference occasionally. I don't remember if it's Conquest or McCormick, that any organization not specifically conservative will invariably turn left.
Yeah, Robert Conquest.
My question for you is, I don't believe this country won the Cold War, and I believe it's still going on. And I just, if you asked if the morality or the zeitgeist of this country has improved or gotten worse, it's clearly gotten worse, and it sure doesn't seem like it's getting better, Dan.
Thanks for the call, Tom. Freedom of the mind requires not only or not even specially the absence of legal constraints, but the presence of alternative thoughts. The most successful tyranny is not the one that uses force to assure uniformity, but the one that removes the awareness of other possibilities. Let that really sink in. Thinking about what K through 12 education and what the college campus was, because Bloom is describing it almost 40 years ago, and is today.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
People ask us all the time, when's the best time to replace an old air conditioner? Simple. Before it breaks. Because when it does, you know it'll be the hottest day of the year, and suddenly you're scrambling like hundreds of others to get help during a heat wave. At Air Right Heating and Cooling, we've seen it all. We know there's never a good time to be without AC, especially in Chicagoland, where the humidity can make 80 degrees feel like 100. At Air Right, our experienced technicians don't just work fast, they'll do it right. Browse through our more than 1,500 5-star Google reviews to see what our loyal customers love most about us. If it's been a while since your system was inspected, don't wait for a heat wave before having it checked out. And right now, AM 560 listeners receive $56 off any service. Visit Air Rite Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Rite, doing it right since 1959.
Hey, business owners, is your company's cybersecurity ready to handle today's cyber attacks? They're getting more and more sophisticated every year. Some companies never recover due to the fallout. In 2021, a ransomware group called DarkSide gained access to Colonial Pipeline through a compromised password. The impact? $4.4 million paid in ransom in 2017. $4.4 million paid in ransom in that case. In 2017, Equifax had a massive breach, which ended up costing more than $700 million in settlements. Large companies from Target and Yahoo to small businesses, including medical practices, have suffered major losses due to cyber attacks. Many had to close their doors. Access One is here to protect your business 24/7, year after year. Access One, they're a proud sponsor of Chicago's Morning Answer. These are the guys you can count on. Cybersecurity isn't just about IT. It's about protecting your survival and customer trust. If you're concerned about cybersecurity, get a free baseline cybersecurity assessment from Access One by calling 1-800-804-8333 or filling out the contact form at accessoneinc.com. That's accessone, spell it out, accessoneinc.com. Access One is here in Chicago. Again, the number is 1-800-804-8333 to schedule your free baseline cybersecurity assessment or visit them online at accessoneinc.com. Hi, Dan Proft here. Data shows that boys make up more than 1/3 of those exploited in the sex trade. However, there are virtually no services available to male victims and survivors of trafficking and exploitation. They are often overlooked, ignored, and left without support. For 35 years, Emmaus has been on the front lines of an issue most of us can hardly imagine, helping men and boys in Chicago escape the nightmare of human trafficking and rebuild their lives. On Friday, November 1st, you're invited to attend an unforgettable evening at the Emmaus 35th Anniversary Gala at Fisherman's Inn in Elburn, Illinois. Together, they'll celebrate faith, freedom, and restoration with a beautifully catered dinner, an inspiring program, and a silent auction, all to support the mission of rescuing and restoring survivors. This is your chance to do something that truly matters. Reserve your seat today, or if you can't attend, make a life-changing donation at streets.org. That's streets.org. Emmaus is restoring lives. Let's help them keep going. Visit streets.org.
Does your garage floor look lousy with stained or cracked concrete, or even worse, bad epoxy or paint? Call Comer and Cross Concrete Floors now. During their end-of-the-year sale at 1-800-NEW-FLOOR right now, you'll get the best price of the year guaranteed, starting with $750 off. At Comer and Cross Garage Floor, they are the gold standard, guaranteed to never chip, crack, or show tire lift like epoxy or bad paint. And they'll make it so easy, they're in and out in one day. They'll fix your cracks, the pits, and they fix them perfectly the first time. They're certified, they're uniformed, they're employees. They'll even take the stuff out of your garage for you, whether you're in Chicago, Milwaukee, or Indiana. Now is the time to call them for the best price of the year, guaranteed, starting with $750 off right now during their end-of-the-year garage sale. Here's the number. It's easy. 1-800-NEW-FLOOR. That's 1-800-NEW-FLOOR, or go to comercross.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here at 6:36. We're going to talk to Dr. Jonathan Allen. Gosh, we haven't talked to him since the height of the COVID era. Is it over? Even in Illinois? California? Dr. Jonathan Allen is a primary care pediatrician, epidemiologist, and former CEO of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Of course, we're going to talk about the Trump, RFK Jr., Marty Makary presser yesterday about the use of Tylenol by pregnant women and the new guidance. That's at 6:36. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 67 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Scattered showers today, high of 74 degrees. Cook County residents still awaiting their property tax bills. Officials with the Cook County Assessor's Office saying the delay is caused by a technology upgrade that's more complex than anticipated. Property owners are being urged to prepare for that bill when it does show up. Property tax bills are due 30 days after the mailing date and will not accrue interest until after that due date passes. Taxpayers who do not escrow their taxes are being advised to save monthly in anticipation of that bill. Community members gathered in front of the Weiss Memorial Hospital Monday afternoon. The group, which included medical personnel, were there to urge administrators to prevent the facility from closing permanently. According to a notice posted on the hospital's website, the facility is being forced to close due to a loss of Medicaid and Medicare funding. Weiss Memorial served primarily low-income and senior citizens. News is a service of Quick Delivery Service. Make Quick Delivery Service your personal ground crew anytime, anywhere, any place. When you need to move your shipment or freight, Quick Delivery will get it there. Get a quote in advance and eliminate any surprises at quickdelivery.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Join AM 560 on Thursday, October 2nd in Glen Ellen for a conservative conversation, an evening of insight, inspiration, and ideas on how conservatives can unite around shared values to advance a common agenda. Speakers will include Pastor Lorenzo Sewell of 180 Church in Detroit, Jeannie Ives, and John Anthony, with each bringing a unique perspective on faith, policy, and community leadership. Get your tickets today at 560theanswer.com/conversation. That's 560theanswer.com/conversation.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at truepowergenerator.com. That's TRUpowergenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
Well, we decided to develop our own mattress line I think, purely from a quality standpoint again.
We wanted to go the opposite way the industry was going. The industry was cheapening things, and we didn't believe in that.
Ben and Arvid from Penny Mustard Furnishings.
The entire mattress industry has gone to one-sided. We still believe that a two-sided is going to last you longer. You can get more comfort out of it.
5 years from now, 10 years from now, I want them to look back and say, wow, I bought that a long time ago, and I'm still really happy with it. That's true in our mattresses. It's true in our furniture.
PennyMustard.com.
8 for Women is hosting their annual dinner on Thursday, September 25th, and you're invited. We're gathering at the beautiful Union League Club downtown. That's 65 West Jackson Boulevard for what's always a really special night. This year's speaker is Dr. Robert Royal, who founded the Faith and Reason Institute in Washington. He has some fascinating insights on faith, culture, and the issues we're all talking about. Here's how the evening unfolds. At 5 o'clock, you can meet Dr. Robert Lawler, our medical director, an amazing person with some amazing stories. Then we'll have drinks and good conversation at 5:30, followed by dinner and the program at 6:30. It's really about supporting women in our community. Getting tickets is easy. Just go to helpaidforwomen.org. That's helpaidforwomen.org. You can grab dinner tickets, try your luck with drawing tickets, or if you're feeling generous, check out the sponsorship options. September 25th, Aid for Women's annual dinner. Hope to see you there. Visit helpaidforwomen.org to join us.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Taking a look at your drive in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with traffic, a service of ExpressPros.com. Eden's inbound, Lake Cook to Montrose, a 15-minute ride. 14 minutes on the Eden's outbound, Montrose to Lake Cook. On the inbound, Kennedy, Montrose to the Byrne Interchange, you're looking at just under 15 minutes. Outbound Kennedy from the Byrne Interchange to Montrose, less than 10. A 7-minute delay on the Eisenhower inbound. In between Wolf and the Old Post Office, it'll take you 21 minutes. A 16-minute ride on the Eisenhower outbound Old Post Office to Wolf. On the Stevenson inbound, in between 355 and Lakeshore Drive, a 33-minute ride with a crash inbound north of LaGrange on your right shoulder, and then a 24-minute ride on the Stevenson outbound Lakeshore Drive at 355. Exhausted with applying for jobs online and never hearing back? With Express Employment Professionals, experts in your community are dedicated to helping you find a job. With more than 870 locations, there's always an office in your area. Start at ExpressPros.com to find an office near you. I'm KT. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now here's Here's the latest forecast from QC Kinetics.
Today will be cloudy, warm, and humid with a thunderstorm later on reaching a high of 77. Tonight stays cloudy with a few showers expected and a low of 64. Tomorrow expect low clouds and cooler temperatures with a chance of a brief shower or two, reaching a high of 71. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Trump's announcement yesterday about acetaminophen and discussion of it was hearkening me back to his COVID press conferences, and I don't say that in a complimentary fashion, frankly. The underlying science is one thing. The clarity of messaging is another. I mean, I guess there was clarity in the sense of pregnant women don't take Tylenol, not good, is clear, but it requires that sort of reversal of understanding, general understanding, I should say, requires some explanation. Here was Trump at his big announcement.
So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that. It's a small number of cases, I think. That's it. There's nothing much to say. Don't take Tylenol if you're pregnant. And don't give Tylenol to your child when he's born or she's born. Don't give it. Just don't give it. And we're going to have, I think, really, if you do all the things that I say, break it up. Just break it up. Break up the shots with the doctor. MMRs, as I told you, separate. Chickenpox already separate. You do these things. I'm telling you, I want to, when I leave office, I don't want to have, it's going to be the kind of number that we're hearing where it's 1 in 32 or 1 in 10, because I've heard 1 in 10 also. And in California, it's really bad. I want it to be, let's get it back to maybe 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 20,000 or maybe none in 20,000. And the only way you're going to do that, because this is artificially induced. This is induced by something. You don't go from 1 in 20,000 to 1 in 10,000, then to 1 in 10. That means you're taking something and something's wrong.
He's referring to, of course, diagnoses of autism going from 1 in 31 or 1 in 32. When he references California, there's data that suggests 1 in 12 boys in California have a autism diagnosis. And you heard him mention something that is artificial that is producing this incidence. It is not what he's suggesting there. It is not just better diagnostics. In other words, medical professionals have a better understanding of the neurological disorder and are able to diagnose it more often than they were previously through medical advances and accrued wisdom. That's the point that JFK made, that it is sort of reiterating Trump's insinuation. This is not an issue of diagnostics. It's an issue of an artificial agent that is at least has some impact on the prevalence of the autism diagnosis.
That's one of the canard that has been promoted by the industry for many years, that it's changed diagnostic criteria, better recognition. But there's been study after study done of that completely debunks that. One of them by the Mind Institute at UC Davis, University of California. But also it's just common sense, because you're only seeing this in people who are under 50 years of age. If it were better recognition or diagnosis, you'd see it in 70-year-old men. I've never seen this happening in people my age. I've never seen a case of full-blown autism, and that means profound autism. I want to be very careful. Head banging, stimming, toe walking, nonverbal, non-toilet trained. I've never in my life seen a 70-year-old man who looks like that. You're only seeing it in the kids. It's an epidemic.
Dr. Marty Makary, FDA, on CNN, sort of poring over the studies on the topic generally, the medical evidentiary support for the new guidance on the use of acetaminophen by pregnant women based on this belief there is a connection to autism.
Any association between fevers and adverse outcomes in the fetus are attributed to the underlying infection, that is the source of the fever, not the fever itself. And you did cite the 2024 study from overseas that did not find an association. That was one of the 4 studies that was not favorable. 27 studies did find an association. So I would say this: when you have an epidemic of autism exploding in our living generation, it was rare a generation ago. It's now 1 in 12 boys in California, and we have no known cause, and you have this overwhelming body of evidence pointing to an association. Why would we take a risk with our nation's kids?
And point of fact, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Columbia, and Mount Sinai, peer-reviewed studies that suggest that there is that association that Makary just described. Harvard School of Public Health found that acetaminophen exposure increases the risk for both autism and ADHD. Johns Hopkins discovered babies with the most acetaminophen in their cord blood were nearly 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism. Even Mount Sinai called the connection to neurodevelopmental disorders strong enough to warrant warnings for expectant mothers. And so this is some of the science and data and peer-reviewed studies that provide the foundation for this change in policy guidance. Okay, well, let's get an expert's review of all of this. We're pleased to be joined again by Dr. Jonathan Ellen, primary care pediatrician and epidemiologist, former CEO of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Dr. Ellen, thanks for joining us again. It's been a while.
Well, yeah, it has been a little while. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you for your time. So what is your reaction to, all that you heard from the sort of assembled public health team there?
Yeah, it was funny. I was thinking through discussions you and I had during the COVID press conferences, back 5 years ago, and the same sort of things came up in terms of the speaking in absolutes. And so then I went to I went back to the actual press release that it was supposed to accompany it, where it wasn't about public spin or anything else, but it was what they were going on the record in written form. And in that form, they actually do recognize that there is no causal link between acetaminophen and a proven causal link between acetaminophen and either any other neuropsych, whether it's ADHD or autism spectrum disorder. And what they're talking about doing is adding labels and to Tylenol. And so the first thing, I don't know what kind of label they're going to add, other than saying there's been evidence that suggests there might be a association. The second is, and I believe this is probably true, that most women would consult their OBGYN to decide if they had a fever, what to do. And I think in that dialogue, they would have the same dialogue they always have, which is don't take anything while you're pregnant if you don't have to. And if you do, because the harm of, in this case, fever could be dramatic on the developing baby, that perhaps, it's better that you take the acetaminophen. And we don't know the true risk, and we don't know, and even more, that I think the idea that a lot of the studies are confounded by the underlying condition for which the medicines were being taken. really raises doubts that you should be, basically making such bold comments as don't take acetaminophen. But again, that's what comes out in the press conference. But if you read the press release, it's much more nuanced than that.
Well, and you heard, this is where, you have like medical professionals like Makary, very specific with language, and politicians sometimes less specific. And part of this was, Trump, prefacing what was to come at Charlie Kirk's funeral service, that we had this biggest press conference of my life and the biggest news and all of this. And we're going to, basically like we've discovered something that will reduce the incidence of autism. And you heard Makary right there talking about the studies, and the studies, as you same word you used, an association, which is different than a causal link. And so, those studies that I mentioned are what they are, but they're not concluding a causal link. They're concluding an association and suggesting, sort of heightened scrutiny for the purposes of awareness and for being circumspect if you're pregnant, but not that causal link or even necessarily a correlative link, but an association. And this is where, sort of gets that sort of nuance, as you were just describing, gets lost.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you said it best. I mean, I do just think the idea that, of course, you're going to have a conversation about risks and benefits with your provider, your healthcare provider, and you're going to make the best decision. And that's how we always do it. That's kind of getting back to our whole point, is that when you declare absolutes one way or another, you're, particularly in healthcare and in medicine, when you're taking care of patients, you're going to get yourself in trouble. Well, because there's always confounders. Well,
and on the other side, I mean, this doesn't help either. They're sort of guilty of the same thing. Tylenol, the company that we believe independent sound science clearly shows that taking acetaminophen does not cause autism. We strongly would disagree with any suggestion otherwise, and we're deeply concerned with the health risk this poses for expecting mothers. Rather than conceding this association and saying we are also concerned about this association and providing an opportunity and using the opportunity to say there's a difference between an association and a causal link, they just take the other opposite. They take the opposite absolute position.
Well, that now you're getting into, and I think you're absolutely right, but now you're getting into both sides in this discussion are driven by something else other than good understanding of risks and benefits with regard to treatment of pregnant women who have a fever. And I think one side wants to basically say, if we do this, we're going to eliminate autism. And the other side says you won't be able to sue us because there's no association.
Yeah, right. Right. We're so interested in pregnant women. You won't be able to sue us. That's your first concern. Yeah, right.
So that's what that statement is. So
yeah, no, there's no question. Something else I wanted to get your reaction to. Again, you're a primary care pediatrician, former CEO of a children's hospital. This was Trump on the children's vaccine schedule.
It's inconvenient. No, you're going to have to go back another year later. You're going to go back each year for 4 years, 5 years, 3 years. Just break it up. Break it up because it's too much liquid. Too many different things are going into that baby at too big a number. The size of this thing, when you look at it, it's like 80 different vaccines and beyond vaccines, and 80. Then you give that to a little kid. I mean, I could.
And specifically on hepatitis B?
Hepatitis B, again, that's sexually transmitted. And we think you should wait. I think you should wait till 12. I'm making these statements from me. I'm not making them from these doctors because when they talk about, different results, different studies, I talk about a lot of common sense. And they have that too. They have that too a lot. But I recommend the hepatitis B. Take it at 12.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 Trumps recommend taking it at 12. What's your reaction, Dr. Allen?
My reaction is the vaccine schedule, first of all, is already broken up over a long period of time. Number two, we've been doing it for a very long period of time. I was doing it, now at my age, almost 1.5 generations ago, and we were still doing the same thing. They broke up the one of the big ones that they talked about breaking up was MMR and the varicella vaccine. And most people recommend not doing those in one single shot, but have two. And I don't really think it was an informed statement, because we do break them up. We send them over time. You do it over time because that's how you get the immune response you need to be protected. And the harm of those infections, it outweighs the side effects like fevers, sore pain, and those kinds of things. So I really just find it, as usual, I find it was over the top in terms of the statement. But it also, this one, even more than anything else, was sort of like, have you ever been to your children's, the first 5 years of their doctor's appointments? They're all broken up, so.
And Hep B? When is Hep B administered?
That's Hep B. Well, the thing about Hep B is very interesting. If you're not worried about the child getting Hep B from the mother or from mother's breast milk, it really is about sexually transmitted infection later on. But the problem is that the opportunity to prevent people from getting chronic hepatitis and cancer and getting people vaccinated at 12 is much harder than getting them vaccinated earlier. Now, what's interesting is when the new advisory panel on immunizations got together last couple of weeks ago, they chose not to make a recommendation about changing the hepatitis B schedule. They tabled a discussion, which, unlike the other things they chose to address, they did show some type of restraint on making a decision about that. So even in their judgment, it wasn't a slam dunk that Hep B should be changed.
I mean, and it is worth noting, Trump reiterated he believes in vaccines, clearly. He, Operation Warp Speed and the COVID vax that he takes credit for, but that he believes in them. So it's just, this is again a question of, as you said, overhyping the science, getting a little bit ahead of the science, and imprecision with language here. When you're talking about people's understanding of what they should be doing vis-a-vis their own health and their children's health, precision is the order of the day. Absolutely, and clear communication, and that's kind of why you brought up the COVID discussion, because that's where we had things, what people called science was not science necessarily, and they would state it as absolute. And then they'd make over-the-top policy statements, and that would, rankle you and rankle me. So, Dr. Jonathan Ellen, primary care pediatrician, epidemiologist, and former CEO of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Dr. Ellen, thanks for joining us again. Good to talk to you. Yeah, have a great day. You too. And he joined us on the turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
President Trump has made some pretty amazing claims since he's taken his seat as president. He's delivering on what he promised. On Inauguration Day, Trump's very first declaration was,
"The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish."
Consider this. Since the election, gold has shot up hundreds of dollars per ounce, shattering all-time record highs. Fox Valley Coins does not pretend to know the future, but they do know that if you're buying or selling gold or silver, they are the place to do it. These are some of the top reasons people choose a dealer. You want a national dealer with a local presence you can deal with face-to-face. You want a large selection, the best prices, and great service. You want to walk in with cash and walk out with the best product. You want to deal with legacy dealers with integrity. Whether buying or selling, or just one valuation, Fox Valley Coins is your answer for choosing a dealer. Visit Fox Valley Coins, 1 light north of I-88 on Route 59 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. FoxValleyCoins.com. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
Whether you are old or young, no one likes to lose money. The market is at an all-time high. How much risk does your portfolio really have in it? Are you worried that you could lose your hard-earned money? Call TJ Stearns in Arlington Heights at 800-640-2256 for your free risk report. Call right now and we will include a full analysis of your portfolio. Don't wait until it's too late. Call TJ Stearns, a local and longtime sponsor on AM 560. Call 800-640-2256. Call now and tell him AM 560 sent you.
AM 560, The Answer.
That sound means it's time for In-Depth History with Frank, the history teacher from Arlington Heights, because there's nothing new in this world except the history you don't know, and Frank does. Frank, take it away.
Good morning. It is often said that our 50-state federal model allows each state to serve as a laboratory of democracy. But Sir Peter Hall, in his magisterial work, Cities in Civilization, argues that historically cities have served as laboratories of innovation, and this may in fact be more important. Hall details a wide array of examples ranging from classical Athens under Pericles to Renaissance Florence under the Medici to the more modern Paris under Napoleon III and even our own Detroit under Henry Ford and Billy Durant. But since the election of FDR and the New Deal handouts of federal money began, practically all of our formerly great American cities have become crime-ridden hellholes under predominantly Democratic leadership. But instead of changing their high tax and spend ways, Democrats have doubled down on socialist urban decay in rather grotesque ways, the most pernicious of which is no cash bail, making the cities even more dangerous. In 1985, food giant Hormel stared down a massive strike at its flagship plant in Austin, Minnesota. Lasting well over a year, strikers engaged in traditional tactics, but when management didn't budge and operated the plant themselves, the strikers resorted to driving their cars very slowly around the plant's main drive, blocking ingress and egress in the middle of winter, which ultimately failed due to National Guard involvement. Since the entire industry was restructuring, the National Union knew the score and disagreed with these childish pranks of Local P9, which was later put into receivership, while the plant was later reopened with mostly non-union workers. The lesson here for Mayor Johnson is that no matter how many salt trucks he uses to block federal law enforcement, in the end, the courts will back the feds and the rule of law will be restored. One area of law he should study further is Chapter 9 of the Federal Bankruptcy Code, which allows for cases of municipal insolvency. Considering Springfield Dems are now flailing around looking for a funding source for the CTA, it might be time for such a filing for the former city of big shoulders, so that it might stand a chance to reemerge someday as a laboratory of innovation.
Very good, Frank, and timely. We'll probably talk about this more at the bottom of the next hour with Ted Drosski, but it's not just flailing around looking for funding for CTA. Chicago pensions on the brink, Wall Street Journal. A crisis created by a temporary computer-caused delay in the collection of property taxes left the firemen's annuity and benefit fund without enough cash to cover current retirement checks. BLM Brandon had to step in with $28 million in short-term loans to save the fund from having to sell assets to cover the shortfall. The police and fire, as we've talked about, those funds are on the razor's edge of solvency at present.
Well, whoever runs against Mayor Johnson in 2027, the slogan should be, file Chapter 9, Brandon, because that's what we're going to have to do someday if they can't get their finances under control.
Yeah, but it will require a collapse. It will require no financial prestidigitation available in order for them to confront insolvency, because whoever is the presider over the insolvency is done politically, and that's what they care about.
Just like Arthur Schlesinger's The Crisis of the Old Order, it's coming for the old order of the Dems. It is.
Frank, thank you as always. Well done. Coming up at 7:07, we'll talk a little bit more city politics. John Catanzara wants to respond, the FOP boss, wants to respond to Brandon Johnson's characterization of law enforcement as a sickness. It is now 7 o'clock, AM 560, WIND.
President Trump will soon take the world stage. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
And he will articulate his straightforward and constructive vision for the world.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. The president is supposed to start his speech late next hour at the UN General Assembly in New York. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson's there.
One issue that will continue to dominate here this week are countries that recognize a Palestinian state. Today, roughly 150 of the 193 UN member states do. Now, here are some close U.S. allies that recently came forward. Britain, Australia, Canada, Portugal, and France.
The Trump administration opposes that, supporting Israel, which keeps waging war in Gaza against Hamas, which Fox has learned has written a letter to the president pushing for a 60-day pause in fighting in exchange for half the hostages. Secretary of State Marco Rubio just told Fox.
We haven't seen the letter. We don't have that letter. And even if we did, it wouldn't matter. The president has already made clear he's not interested in 60 days, 10 people. He wants all the hostages out, all 48, including the 20 who are alive.
President Trump will meet at the UN with Arab leaders trying to stop that war. President Trump also urging pregnant women not to take Tylenol or generic acetaminophen, claiming it can be associated with a greater risk of autism. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says
the FDA will issue a physician's notice about the risk of acetaminophen during pregnancy and begin the process to initiate a safety label change.
The maker of Tylenol disputes all this. Kenview, in a statement, says sound science clearly shows taking acetaminophen does not cause autism. Closing arguments are this morning at the trial for the man charged in the second Trump assassination attempt last year.
Ryan Ruth got through all of his witnesses in just one day. Acting as his own attorney, Ruth called on 3 before resting his defense.
Fox's Dana Marie McNichol outside the federal court in Fort Pierce, Florida. Jimmy Kimmel's show will be back on the air tonight. ABC reinstating it less than a week after suspending Kimmel over comments about Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin. America's listening to Fox News.
WIND, Chicago.
Good morning. It is 67 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. We'll see scattered showers today, a high of 74. The trial is underway for a former Waukegan police officer who's accused of murder. Dante Salinas is charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of involuntary manslaughter in the shooting death of Marcella Stinnett. Officials say Salinas also shot and injured Stinnett's girlfriend after they tried to speed away from a traffic stop. The Lake County State's attorney said Williams was simply a passenger and didn't commit a crime. Neither Stinnett nor Williams had a weapon on them. Protests continued outside the ICE facility in Broadview yesterday. Fox's Mike Tobin reports with the latest.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement says protesters began slashing tires. They blocked the entrance to the building, threw rocks, cans, and bottles. They shot fireworks, even, according to agents, used tear gas. So ICE agents used their own tear gas, rubber bullets, and pepper spray to get the scene at the temporary facility under control. 16 people were arrested. Charges include assaulting a federal officer. With the chaos that unfolded outside the facility, ICE has released to me the identities and backgrounds of 6 people who were held in the facility while protesters were demonstrating on their behalf, all of them in the U.S. illegally.
There could be a new building coming to the Miracle Mile. The Chicago Tribune is reporting that residential developer AMLI Residential is awaiting approval from the city officials before breaking ground on the proposed 56-story skyscraper. The mixed-unit building would include 199 parking spaces with a garage entrance on Erie Street and 50 affordable units to meet its obligations under Chicago's Affordable Requirements Ordinance. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Scott Jennings says we may see a shutdown.
There's no real wiggle room here for House Speaker Mike Johnson. Can't afford many defections, and the measure will need 60 votes in the Senate. Democratic leaders Schumer and Jeffries already saying they will not support this 7-week deal. Are we headed for a government shutdown in 2 weeks? Seems possible.
The Scott Jennings Show. Weekdays at 1, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer. Is war in the Middle East the revival of an ancient conflict recorded in the Bible?
The nation of Israel is a resurrected nation. So what if there was going to be a resurrection of another people, an enemy people of Israel?
Dinesh D'Souza's new film, The Dragon's Prophecy, is in theaters 2 nights only, October 6th and 8th.
We came back to a land that was largely barren and empty, and we brought it back to life, and we're going to keep it.
Tickets not sold in theaters. Get tickets only at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aid.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft. If that happens, LifeLock gives you the U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims. Your agent handles it all. In fact, They're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. It's nice to have an expert like that on your side. Save up to 40% off your first year with promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Michaela's Mobile Spa, Michaela! Michaela got a quick business insurance quote from Progressive and chose from over 30 customizable coverages. Sure, it helps she's her only employee and does literally everything, but while others would rest on their laurels, Michaela was hard at work saving big. So take that, hypothetical other employee who doesn't exist. Be your own Michaela. See if you could save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
They took everything. Our equipment, our supplies, it's all gone.
It's devastating. Every order is going to be delayed for months, and our customers are going to find someone else.
I don't know if we'll ever recover from this. We're already getting calls from clients checking on their orders.
Who knows how long it will take to get back on our feet? What were we thinking not upgrading our security?
Don't let a break-in devastate your business. Protect yourself with Goldilocks. They'll create a customized security solution for you. From commercial doors with keyless entry to 24/7 alarm monitoring, they have you covered. Learn more at GoldilocksInc.com and have a security technician conduct an on-site assessment of your business. Plus, AM 560 listeners get their first 3 months of monitoring free with a new install. Call Goldilocks now. 708-889-5600. That's 708-889-5600. Goldilocks, Chicagoland's premier locksmith doors and security systems company since 1981.
Taking a look at your drive in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with traffic service of Air Ride Heating and Cooling. Inbound Edens, Lake Cook to Montrose, a 19-minute ride. 15 minutes on the Edens outbound Montrose to Lake Cook. A 24-minute travel time on the inbound Kennedy Montrose to the Byrne Interchange. Kennedy outbound from the Byrne Interchange to Montrose, a 12-minute ride. Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office. It'll take you 34 minutes. A 23-minute travel time on the Eisenhower outbound from the Old Post Office to Wolf. And on the Stevenson inbound, 355 to Lakeshore Drive, 47 minutes. A 31-minute ride, Stevenson outbound Lakeshore Drive to 355. There's a broken down vehicle that's blocking the outbound off-ramp to Kedzie Avenue. Traffic is a service of Air Ride Heating and Cooling, offering AM 560 listeners $56 off any service, including inspections. Don't wait for a heat wave for that old air conditioner to break down. Visit Air Ride Heating and Cooling today. That's AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. I'm KT. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now here's the latest forecast from QC Kinetics.
Today will be cloudy, warm, and humid with a thunderstorm later on reaching a high of 77. Tonight stays cloudy with a few showers expected and a low of 64. Tomorrow expect low clouds and cooler temperatures with a chance of a brief shower or two reaching a high of 71. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by The Real Story with Jeannie Ives, powered by Breakthrough Ideas, Sunday evening at 7 on AM 560 The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. On Friday, we brought you the latest from BLM Brandon. Words that should be included in every story detailing the daily murder and mayhem on the streets of Chicago. These words.
The fact of the matter is we are driving violence down on this city, and we're using every single resource that's available to us. Jails and incarceration and law enforcement is a sickness that has not led to safe communities.
Law enforcement and prison is a sickness. We are so close to equity under the law. All we need to do is stop enforcing it and stop meting out punishment, and then comes the Marxist paradise. So close. You know what it reminded me of when Johnson was on his little rant there? And, you know, with the recent passing of Robert Redford, reminded me of this.
Losing is a disease as contagious as syphilis. But curable. Now, I want you to imagine You are on a ship at sea.
And if you remember that great scene in The Natural, Robert Redford Roy Hobbs has had enough. He just like rolls his eyes and walks out of the room. Yes, Brandon Johnson's comment should actually have that musical accompaniment there, a circus, and we should all walk out of the room. John Catanzara is the president of Chicago FOP. He posted video in response to law enforcement is a sickness. This is what Catanzara had to say.
Behind me is the mayor's house. 3 squad cars blocking it, patrolling it, protecting it for him and his family. Yet he calls law enforcement a sickness. What a hypocrite. Piece of garbage. And the sooner he is gone in March of 27, the better. The reality is, if Brandon Johnson was not mayor of City of Chicago and still working for CTU, he'd be picketing, protesting, and demanding defunding of the police department every single chance he got. Period. He has always hated us. He still hates us. He just can't say what he wants to publicly. But 2 days ago, the truth came out a little bit because he lost control. And believe him when he says it, that he believes we are a sickness. That's just who he is.
For more on this, please be joined by the man you were just hearing from on his video, John Catanzara, president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. John, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Morning. So, I mean, at this point, do statements like that from Brandon Johnson even register among the rank and file, or for that matter, the brass at Chicago PD, or do they just, like Roy Hobbs and The Natural, sort of roll their eyes and carry on?
Oh, I think that specific comment registered with the rank and file. I can't speak on behalf of the brass. They, all have their own ideas and agendas on what they'll tolerate. But the rank and file specifically, he exposed himself for who he is. The emperor has no clothes, so to speak. He lost his composure and said what he's been really thinking all along.
And so what impact does that have on how the department operates, how guys do their work?
Well, I mean, it's not. You can't not do your job and take it out on the citizens of the city because the mayor's an idiot,
right?
And a race baiter. So the men and women of the Chicago Police Department are still going to go, still make stops, still get guns off the street, and still support and try and protect the victims and the citizens as a whole. That's never going to stop, and it is the reason why crime is going down, because they have been doing their job all along. It's just now there is a Cook County State's attorney who actually prosecutes people and follows through on it. And, thank God, a new chief judge.
Yeah, right. Tim Evans is gone, too. What is your perspective on the new chief judge? Do you have one?
Judge Beach, by all accounts, I met him, obviously, in passing at 26th and Cal in the last few years, but I've never had any cases in front of him, so I don't know a whole lot about him other than from what I hear other officers speak, and it's much better than where we're at, that's for sure.
So they were encouraged to see him replace Tim Evans. They think it's going to be better.
I don't think it could have gotten any worse, so yes.
Yeah, sort of like Kim Fox, yeah, right. Okay, so with respect to Snelling, would you? I mean, I know he's in a tough spot because he's an appointee, but a statement that
is he though?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is he though?
Well, that's what I was going to
appointee all you want.
That's what I was going to ask. Would you like to see him say something when you see a mayor make a statement like that?
And the superintendent has done some phenomenal things, and boosting morale is probably number one, and making the troops feel supported. But the disappointing part for me personally is his blind allegiance to the mayor's office, and it is there. The constant battles over police funerals, of which we've had far too many, and his insistence that the mayor needs to be part of these, in spite of the family's wishes, is extremely disappointing. And just like David Brown told me day one, Snelling said the same thing. I am going to do what's good for the troops and literally be my own man. But that is not the case yet again. It just is not, and there's no way around it. He stood in front of a room full of people at an awards ceremony, as the mayor was at, and told the whole room that Yolanda Talley was his pick for first deputy 15 months after it was vacant. Like, all of a sudden, he discovered my perfect person was right here as the chief of IED the whole time. Everybody knows it was Brandon Johnson that made it happen. And if you need to look any further, he stripped her of all her responsibilities, realistically, that the first deputy has always historically had. So much so that now she's retired. I mean, again, this whole first female black first deputy ever, blah, blah, blah. But within months, she's gone because she has no power. And she should have never been put in that spot to begin with. But Snelling conceded and gave the mayor what he wanted. There is no other way around it. And that's not being your own man. If you are, and he always said, I have 30 years on this job. I don't need this job. I'm going to do it for the men and women. Well, then do it and risk getting fired. He had a perfect opportunity after the DNC when he was the golden child of all golden childs, so to speak, along with, let's say, the chief of counterterrorism, Dwayne DeVries, to put someone in that spot contrary to what the mayor wanted and dare the mayor to do something about it. But he didn't do that. So how is that not capitulating to the mayor's wishes?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, he's gotten, as you said, he's gotten a lot of high marks, including from people we talked to that are rank and file, and had pretty high hopes for him coming in, too, because, he was a known quantity. But do you think that the men and women on the force, the rank and file, see him playing both sides as well?
Absolutely. And that's always been, to your point, a problem with the appointment kind of process. I think the more reasonable way and approach would be to guarantee a contract for the superintendent. When you name that superintendent and they are hired, they are guaranteed X amount of years of service. So you can't get rid of them. And if you do, you're going to pay them a giant number to be forced to walk away. Is it perfect? No. But are you going to get a little more independence from that position? Absolutely. And until that happens, it seems that we're going to keep getting people who say they're going to be their own person, but are not going to risk losing their job for standing up to a certain point.
At Charlie Kirk's funeral service on Sunday, President Trump again invoked Chicago and said, one of the last things Charlie Kirk asked him was to please save Chicago, and he sort of intimated again that Chicago is still on the list in terms of the deployment of National Guardsmen to aid and abet peace on the streets in the city, as is happening in Memphis right now, and obviously D.C. before. What's your view on the prospect of federal intervention here?
Well, I will tell you, I actually was in Phoenix for the memorial service myself on Sunday. It was pretty powerful and amazing. And I had met Charlie a couple years ago at AmFest, and when he found out who I was, he said the same thing. Hopefully we can save Chicago. So it's not unique. It was a reoccurring theme for many people who love this city for what it is. But the sad part is, what do we have to lose? Whether it's the mayor or the governor, this is all political theater on many parts, including the president's. Does anybody really think that Brandon Johnson is going to change the president's mind about what he's going to do? I mean, the president has an ego just like Brandon Johnson does, and it's going to be a battle of wills, and the federal government wins every single time. But the sad loser in all of this are the citizens of this city. There is always something else you can do to make it better. And this whole disinvestment nonsense and argument, let me ask you this question. The mayor talks about this all the time, the historic disinvestment, but yet some of his biggest supporters are aldermen who have been aldermen for extended periods of time on the west and south sides who have done nothing about that historic disinvestment, but yet he supports them for re-election every single time when they haven't done nothing while they're there. It's all a big farce.
So what would you like to see? I mean, I assume it starts with how many ever officers you think the force is down in terms of where it needs to be.
Well, we're down 2,000 from our all-time high. That's just a simple fact. And there is no, miraculous cure that's going to turn this around. The poisoning of this profession by media specifically and politicians have made it absolutely unappealing to the normal people. When we used to give a test every 7 to 8 years, and you'd get 20 to 30,000 applicants taking that test, now they give tests in 3 or 4 different locations, city colleges across the city, over the course of a whole weekend, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with a morning and a noon session, and they can't even get 1,000 applicants with all of those testing sites and dates.
Wow.
It's a different world. So when some people like to decry, the salaries, the pensions, the benefits, we would have even less if we didn't have those benefits right now. Officers are running for the hills because they just don't feel supported by politicians specifically in this city and state, and obviously even citizens within the city who have been led to believe that the police are the villains.
So when, the CPD is a little bit less in the crosshairs right now, I mean, like literally in real time. But what does a rank and file CPD officer think when they watch the demonization of federal law enforcement officers who work for ICE, the protests going outside the facility in Broadview, that chaos, and the things that J.B. Pritzker's essentially called them terrorists? Brandon Johnson has said basically the same, have a whole lot of other politicians, these whistle brigades to point them out if they're in the neighborhood and so on and so forth. The complete lack of support from, and obviously the dynamic of the sanctuary city that is Chicago. What do Chicago police officers think when they watch another law enforcement agency being treated the way that it's being treated by its political leadership?
I got to tell you, very few things irritate an officer more than watching fellow officers get attacked and having to stand by helplessly, so to speak, whether it's directly in the vicinity or even to just watch it and have knowledge that it's occurring. They are a law enforcement agency, and shame on anybody who thinks otherwise. They do deserve the protection to do their duty and their job and their mission, and that is their mission. You cannot like the mission, but it doesn't matter. They have a job to do, and they shouldn't be subjected to what they're being subjected to. And I can guarantee you, if we had a different mayor and different department directives, the men and women of Chicago Police Department would, I'm not saying gladly, willingly, or joyfully, but absolutely willingly participate in protecting federal officers from getting attacked by crazies. And that's just what they are.
Brandon Johnson said, and J.B. Pritzker said the same thing, what they're collectively doing together is working. So there's any suggestion of a violent crime problem is a manufactured crisis. Those are the words Juliana Stratton used, the lieutenant governor. What are they doing? Is it working? And if what they're doing isn't the proximate cause of a reduction in some violent crime in Chicago, what is?
Again, it's farcical. These violence interrupters wasted millions of dollars. It's contracts thrown out to their friends to sit there and put ex-cons, and I'm not saying they're all bad, but, we don't have to look too far for examples where that hasn't panned out very well. They're not responsible for really anything, to be quite honest with you. It is all about prosecution and fear of going to jail. If their mindset and their approach was so accurate and that they're responsible for this drop in crime, then why is it that we have weekend after weekend, especially holiday weekends, where the violence erupts yet again, just like it does every single year? Just because criminals are taking a break to kind of gauge what's going on in this world and in this city, and am I going to get away with it, doesn't mean that they are doing anything different. The men and women of the police department are the ones that will actually do the work, and they are doing the same work now that they have been doing all along. That has not changed. So they're full of it when they say that they're responsible for some big dip. It's the prosecution component of it that's made the difference.
John Canzara is president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. John, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
And can I add one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
As far as being a hypocrite, I want people to know how big of a hypocrite Brandon Johnson really is. He talks about law enforcement being a sickness, but yet every day law enforcement drives his 2 kids to a school out of district from where he lives because the school in his neighborhood absolutely sucks. So he sends them to another school where they get a better education. I mean, it's just the ultimate hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any comment on the rumors about his medical condition, for lack of a better description, these anxiety attacks he allegedly has?
I don't know if it's alleged, but it seems it's pretty well. It's a well protected secret, but it's not an unknown secret, and it's not mythical or made up or manufactured. It's factual. It happens. This is a guy who has a 2-person SWAT team everywhere he goes in a vehicle, following him all the way around. But we're a sickness.
Yeah, right.
Apparently, we're also the remedy too, because we can administer first aid when he has one of these panic attacks.
John Catanzara, President of Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. John, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
And John joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one. Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
When it comes to industrial coating and finishing, cutting corners isn't an option. That's why leading manufacturers across the Midwest trust D&D Industrial Coatings in Racine, Wisconsin. From powder coating and liquid painting to blasting and custom finishing, D&D Industrial delivers top-tier protection and performance, fast, precise, and built to last. With over 40 years of experience, ISO-certified processes, and state-of-the-art lines, D&D handles everything from OEMs and petrochemical to agriculture, marine, construction, medical, and government specs. Family-owned, nationally trusted. Whether it's a short run or high volume, your parts are in expert hands, finished on time and finished right. Visit them today, ddindustrial.net. Again, that's ddindustrial.net. Or call them at 262-637-0686 to get your custom quote today. Again, that's 262-637-0686. D&D Industrial Coatings. Engineered to protect. Finished to impress.
Chicago businesses. Your phone, internet, and IT should work well 24/7. But when it doesn't, who are you calling? At Overseas Help Desk? If you want clear, reliable local experts, consider Access One. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One has you covered. Access One is Chicago-owned, Chicago-run, and serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore and everywhere in between. We're rated top 5% in customer satisfaction, a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business, and trusted by law firms, clinics, tech startups to manufacturers. Let's talk about making your IT work well. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneinc.com. That's accessoneinc.com. Tech made personal, locally.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at truepowergenerator.com. That's TRUpowergenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
Did you know a will alone does not keep your family out of court when you die? The court still has to approve your will, but get a living trust, and your estate can be settled clearly without issue. Talk to the attorneys at Nauman & Associates. They prepare wills and trusts for a flat fee, no surprises, no hourly rate. With decades of experience, they know the law and offer a free consultation. Contact Nauman & Associates in Elk Grove Village, nalawgroup.com. Call 847-593-8777.
AM 560, The Answer.
Well, that was interesting. Good conversation with John Catanzara, president of FOP. 2-person SWAT team that follows BLM Brandon around. Cops that drive his kids to school out of his neighborhood so they can go to a better school. Of course, this is a guy who opposes opportunity scholarships for other kids. Yeah, the hypocrisy is deep with this political ruling class, isn't it? And the lack of disclosure about his medical condition, too. That should be more of an issue than it is. Coming up at 7:37, we'll talk more Illinois policy and a little politics, too. Ted Drosski, formerly of WirePoint, now a Republican candidate for governor. We'll talk about that Chicago pension issue I mentioned earlier in discussions with Frank from Arlington Heights. And Chicago restaurants, too, the restaurant scene. Paul Vallis has a good piece in Chicago Contrarian. That's coming up at 7:37. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 68 degrees in Chicago on AM 560. The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Community members gathered in front of Weiss Memorial Hospital yesterday afternoon. The group, which included medical personnel, were there to urge administrators to prevent the facility from closing permanently. According to a notice posted on the hospital's website, that facility is being forced to close due to a loss of Medicaid and Medicare funding. Weiss Memorial served primarily low-income and senior citizens. And a local high school football player has his quick-thinking teammates to thank for saving his life. Ridgewood High School junior Nicholas Hunt was on a run when he suddenly collapsed. Hunt says he and his friends had all learned CPR at school. It's a requirement for Illinois students, and the friends sprang into action. They performed chest compressions and mouth-to-mouth and ultimately saved his life. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Join AM 560 on Thursday, October 2nd in Glen Ellen for a conservative conversation, an evening of insight, inspiration, and ideas on how conservatives can unite around shared values to advance a common agenda. Speakers will include Pastor Lorenzo Sewell of 180 Church in Detroit, Jeannie Ives, and John Anthony, with each bringing a unique perspective on faith, policy, and community leadership. Get your tickets today at 560theanswer.com/conversation. That's 560theanswer.com/conversation.
It's Reveille. It's folks like these that we need more of doing the hard work of community violence prevention, Pritzker remarked after meeting with anti-violence peacekeepers. At the time that Governor Pritzker made these remarks, he was standing next to a man wearing a Peacekeepers t-shirt, who days later was arrested for murder. CWB Chicago broke the story, and in their article, they said the man also had warrants for his arrest in 4 other states. This one episode shows you what a scam these violence prevention organizations are. In an attempt to do damage control, Pritzker's media team scrubbed the photo of him standing next to the man, but no amount of scrubbing can erase the story, and in fact, more investigation is needed. This quote-unquote peacekeeper is a flip worker under Chicago cred. FLIP stands for Flatlining Violence to Inspire Peace. They are an affiliate program of Chicago Cred, a nonprofit headed by Arne Duncan, Obama's former U.S. Secretary of Education. On Chicago Cred's website, it says when Duncan returned to Chicago, he wanted to help reshape the city's approach to gun violence and focus on saving lives. So the idea of Chicago Cred was born. Their teams include individuals with street cred, meaning ex-felons. But in fact, in many cases, the people they work with haven't actually left their life of crime behind. That's how you get the governor standing next to a guy at an anti-violence press conference who days later is arrested for murdering someone while evading the police after stealing $700,000 from a Louis Vuitton store. And Illinois taxpayers are paying for this. Chicago Cred partners with a number of taxpayer-supported organizations, and in the FY 2026 state budget, their partners alone are set to receive over $36 million. A decade ago, there was a massive investigation into the misuse of tax dollars going to violence prevention programs. We haven't learned anything. Here we are again with another investigation needed. I'm Jeannie Ives. Join me Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. and sign up for my newsletter at breakthrough-ideas.com.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Taking a look at your drive in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with traffic service of Air Right Heating and Cooling. Inbound Edens Lake Cook to Montrose, a 19-minute ride. 15 minutes on the Edens outbound Montrose to Lake Cook. A 24-minute travel time on the inbound Kennedy Montrose to the Byrne Interchange. Kennedy outbound from the Byrne Interchange to Montrose, a 12-minute ride. Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office. It'll take you 34 minutes. A 23-minute travel time on the Eisenhower outbound from the Old Post Office to Wolf. And on the Stevenson inbound, 355 to Lakeshore Drive, 47 minutes. A 31-minute ride, Stevenson outbound, Lakeshore Drive to 355. There's a broken down vehicle that's blocking the outbound off-ramp to Kedzie Avenue. Traffic is a service of Air Ride Heating and Cooling, offering AM 560 listeners $56 off any service, including inspections. Don't wait for a heat wave for that old air conditioner to break down. Visit Air Ride Heating and Cooling today. That's AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. I'm KT. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now here's the latest forecast from QC Kinetics.
Today will be cloudy, warm, and humid with a thunderstorm later on, reaching a high of 77. Tonight stays cloudy with a few showers expected and a low of 64. Tomorrow, expect low clouds and cooler temperatures with a chance of a brief shower or two, reaching a high of 71. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. That theme music means it's time for our weekly conversation with Ted Drosski, formerly of wirepoints.org, now a Republican candidate for governor, as we discussed last week. Before we get to Ted, the incumbent governor, his name is J.B. Pritzker. You've heard about him, right? He's this guy.
One who intends to come take away the freedom and opportunity and dignity of Illinoisans. I would remind you that a happy warrior is still a warrior. You come for my people, you come through me.
And that message was specifically directed at ICE. You come for his people, meaning people in this country illegally. You come through him. Well, Operation Midway Blitz is coming for his people in this country illegally who pose public safety threats. Those are J.B. Pritzker's people. That's what he said, not me. And I've seen some polls, the various communists running to replace Jan Schakowsky in the 9th Congressional District out at Broadview, making a spectacle of themselves, engaged in something decidedly unpeaceful. When you obstruct federal law enforcement, that is not peaceful protesting. Not to mention banging on the cars of federal law enforcement, so on and so forth. This is sort of the scene outside Broadview over the this weekend and into yesterday as well. Here are some of these people who are trying to make our discourse more civil, our society more kind, to advance the cause of tolerance and understanding.
Nazi f***ing Gestapo! You are Nazis! You are Nazis! You are Nazis! You are Nazis! Go Heil Hitler! Come on! Go ahead and cosplay circle jerk.
Pritzker's peeps out there in Broadview. Darius and Lou, this is great. Darius and Lou over at CBS2 were on the scene and had to take cover when federal law enforcement was required to resort to tear gas and pepper spray to disperse these Jacobins.
They're closing the gate right now. There's a person on the ground being held on the ground by those ICE agents. And look, if you pan over right now, Lou.
Hey, Lou.
See right here with the vehicle. They are plowing through these. They are plowing through the protesters right here at this vehicle. They've tried to deploy everything that they could as these protesters were trying to block agents from moving in and out. They have another man. They are just deploying anything that they can to try to get the protesters out of the way. Dana, give me me 1 second as I put my mask on because they just sprayed chemical agents again. Okay. So
how's Lou?
Right now, this is what we have been seeing. This has been one of the tensest moments this morning. What just happened right now? You had vehicles that were trying to make its way out. Dana, I'm actually going to move away from the camera now that the smoke is
Darius,
now impacting my eyes.
You need to get away from that smoke. Please, we appreciate your reporting. Get away from that smoke.
I'm back near the vehicle, Dana. I'm near the vehicle. I have a mask on. I'm okay. So basically, every time that people are pulling out, they are blocking the vehicles from getting in and out. At this point, what we saw this time was the agents on top of the roof. They started, Lou, you need to get something on your eyes.
Come on, Lou, don't be a hero.
Dana, let me send it back to you. We're going to hold the shot.
Yes.
We just need to protect our eyes right now.
I mean, actually, I do appreciate Darius and Lou's intrepid reporting because he detailed CBS 2 hardly sympathetic to the conservative position on issues, the common sense position on issues. They're just documenting exactly what I said, that what he was describing is not a peaceful protest. I mean, in addition to their profane vulgarities, that's not peaceful. Blocking federal law enforcement from trying to get in and out. You can't do that. That's against the law, which is why somebody was taken into custody, especially when you get up in a law enforcement officer's face. If it's good enough for a New Jersey congresswoman to be indicted, it's good enough for these Jacobins to be dispersed and or arrested as well, isn't it? Yeah. You come through J.B. Pritzker. And really, this again is an illustration of violence as the means to political ends. This is what they believe because they don't agree with the enforcement of federal immigration law. They think that the laws don't apply to them. And that includes the governor, frankly. And certainly, I did not hear a statement. Does anybody have a copy of a statement that J.B. Pritzker or any other elected member of the new Marxist Party in this state issued saying, hey, we're not going to cross the line into breaking the law, and the protesters outside in Broadview need to know that? Has anybody issued that statement? Anybody? Bueller? Ted Drosski, Republican candidate for governor, state of Illinois, tedforillinois.com, joins us. Ted, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan.
Your reaction, I mean, this is, a sanctuary city, sanctuary state. Well, in this case, it's Broadview, so it's a sanctuary state consequence. Your view on the governor's handling of it and what should be done?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to say. I think the starting point is that the governor could end all this chaos. He could end all these preventable crimes if he actually respected the rule of law. What we're talking about here are violent criminals who have come here illegally or performed, who came here illegally and maybe have performed acts of violence here. And, if Governor Pritzker would just hand over in cuffs directly from our jails to the federal authorities, then ICE and other federal officials wouldn't have to go chase them down and create the kind of problems that are being created. Governor Pritzker could solve all this right now by working with the federal authorities and just hand them over, and there would be less problems. That's number one. Number two, though, is, he's harboring, we talk about sanctuary state and sanctuary city in the terms of allowing illegal immigrants to come here, but by that same policy, he's harboring criminals because he's not turning them over to the federal authorities. So he's doing so many wrong things, and by incentivizing with his welcoming policies more and more illegal immigrants, he's incentivizing more and more illegal immigrants that are violent to come to Illinois, and they know it. These illegal immigrants know that, and the criminals know that they are safer here because Pritzker and Johnson will not prosecute them, or at least not hand them over, and that's a huge problem. So, this is the realities that Pritzker's perpetuating this problem. These are preventable crimes, preventable chaos, and it's all on him. And any blood that's spilled is on him.
Let's turn to financial chaos. I mentioned this earlier in the program in our discussion with Frank from Harlington Heights, his History Minute today, talking about the possibility of Chapter 9 for the city of Chicago, which is something that's been bandied about for many moons. But there is sort of a moment here that's been a little bit different than in the past. Wall Street Journal opined on Chicago pensions on the brink. Now, that's a headline that we've seen for decades, which is why people don't believe it's real. But this was real. A temporary computer caused delay in the collection of property taxes left the Chicago Firemen's Annuity and Benefit Fund without enough cash to cover current retirement checks. So BLM Brandon had to step in with $28 million in short-term loans to save the fund from having to sell assets to cover the shortfall. Chicago's 4 public pension funds among the nation's most underfunded. And in July, a memo emailed to Deputy Governor for Budget and Economy, Andy Manar, is a former state legislator, part of the problem, continues to be part of the problem. Chicago's CFO, Jill Jaworski, explained that the proposed changes in the pension benefits, the legislation that Governor Pritzker signed to enhance firefighter and police benefits, the proposed changes in the pension benefits should reduce the funded ratio for both the police and firefighter funds to under 20%. Many actuaries consider a funded ratio under 20% to be technically insolvent. That's what the Chicago City of Chicago's Chief Financial Officer, Jill Jaworski, wrote in a memo to the governor's office. Many actuaries consider a funded ratio under 20% to be technically insolvent, and so it is now. And so we have a moment like we had with the firefighters fund. More of this to follow, I presume.
Yeah, I think we can't stress it enough. And, we've been warning about this problem. It's a deepening problem. Those pensions in Chicago continue to eat more and more of the budget. But now it's reached a point where, and this is a case where you have some kind of exogenous event, and suddenly the pensions don't have enough money, and they have to borrow. And this is a precise case where we're seeing just how little money those pension plans have, right? Because if they had lots of money, like any pension fund, if they were a normally functioning pension fund, they wouldn't need to borrow money. They would just sell some stock and pay it out. In this case, they can't do that, and it tells you how bankrupt it is. And the sad story is, here we are talking. You were talking earlier about the police morale. Well, here you're talking about police and fire pensions that are the cusp of running out of money. And if you're worried about police morale and they're hearing that their pensions are effectively broke, it's just another bigger problem. And Governor Pritzker knew that this pension fund is in deep trouble. He didn't need a memo from Jill, from the CFO to say that these are technically insolvent, but they are technically insolvent, and yet he still increased the benefits. He still made things worse for Chicagoans. He still made things worse for police and fire because he's made their pensions more bankrupt. It's a horrific decision. We warned about it. I warned about it. I've warned about it for years, especially about this increase in the pensions, and he did it anyway. Governor Pritzker is derelict in that.
I know you've offered proposals over the years as to what to do to fund the public sector pensions at the state and city level. What should be done, sort of best practices to make sure that promises made will be kept to people who are relying on those promises, which is the right thing to do, even if they were bad promises. And so at this stage, if you're a governor in 2027, what do you do? And let's just, I understand you have a General Assembly and probably going to be dominated by the new Marxists like it is now, probably supermajorities. But in terms of what you would propose to do, what you would drive to do, is it bankruptcy? Is it some sort of structural reform of the pensions? Is it a combination of the two? What is it?
Well, you got quite a few things you got to do. The first thing you have to do, absolutely do, and it's constitutional, is you go to a 401k plan for all workers, new workers going forward, because that way you stop digging a hole. As we continue these pensions, we keep digging a bigger hole. And and those 401ks should be good, especially for police and firemen. We should make sure we protect the people who protect our citizens. But that's a 401k to start with. Number two is you got to start freeing up cash so that there's enough money to go towards pensions. So when you think about the city, and there's also the Chicago public schools, right? So you're talking about the entire tax base. You've got to just get rid of all the waste. And I think of immediately my head goes to, you've got all these empty schools that are, with 30 students or 50 students. They suck up a lot of money, right? This taxpayer money. You got to go at all the head count that has been wasteful. And we've seen that largely in CPS, but of course also in the city. You've got to go after all the head count that's sucking up the money, especially a lot of bureaucrats. And so you've got to do that. And then you've got to look at bankruptcy as well, because we know that these legislators and these aldermen will never consider real reforms. So you've got to have that threat of bankruptcy hanging over their head if, in fact, the city runs out of money. And that way, unions and others will finally negotiate some changes.
Well, it's interesting. I always make this point. I haven't checked recently, but I assume it's still the case. How just sort of fundamentally unwilling to be responsible is the General Assembly. The worst funded of the 5 state pension funds has been, and I assume still is, the legislative pension fund. They can't even act to maintain the solvency of their own pension fund, much less anybody else's.
Yeah, it's a very small fund, of course, because it's just for the legislators. But it has been 12% funded. It's effectively been broke, and it runs on just effectively a big subsidy from the state just to keep it solvent. But it's broke, and they're fine with it. It's fascinating that these legislators, we call them legislators, but they don't legislate. They just keep doling out benefits. They refuse to fix anything, and it's the people who pay. And we haven't talked about this, but underlying all this is why we pay the highest property taxes in the country.
Right.
The second highest gas taxes, the highest cell phone taxes, and they want more taxing. They keep talking about more revenues, and it's why people in the end leave the state. It's why they're destroying the state, and why we have to do the exact opposite of what they've been doing for the last 30 years.
Well, and again, as we've talked about before, if you want to take the most recent high-profile case, that would be Detroit. If you don't act in a way that is designed to keep the promises that were made, and that includes the public sector unions coming to the table too, as you reference, then what you end up is everybody takes a haircut. Then the promises won't get kept, but it will be of your own volition because you refuse to be constructive in dealing with a problem that has many fathers in terms of its creation and exacerbation.
Well, a lot of people get scared by that word bankruptcy because it sounds like it's a really bad thing. But if you act early enough, then you can actually restructure what's there.
Yeah.
If you keep waiting and waiting like Detroit did, well, there's not a whole lot left except for just a cut. And I would remind people of this: Detroit's bankruptcy. Their debt load was huge, but it was more bonded debt. So there were bondholders who were going to take a hit. In Chicago's case, it's the reverse. There's less bonded debt, and there's a massive amount of pension debt. And we don't want to see the pensioners take a hit. Certainly not our public safety pensioners. And so it behooves us to really get to the table sooner, as opposed to waiting 3, 4, 5, and 10 years when a McDonald's could be gone and the CME could be gone, and we have even less revenues to work with. And that's the fear for me, is that people and big businesses keep leaving, and our tax base will be so damaged that when we get to a bankruptcy, it's hard to do anything because there's not much to negotiate except to cut.
That's an important point, distinguishing Chicago's situation from Detroit's. Paul Vallis had this piece over at ChicagoContrarian.com about the city's restaurant scene. 9,000 restaurants employing 150,000 people generate about $10 billion in annual sales and fuel tax revenue that supports city services and schools and transit and so forth. And they're getting hammered. The combination of COVID and Bidenflation, and we know what the vacancy rate is on main drags like the Mag Mile. Retail vacancy, 31%, Mag Mile. The ending the tipping wage compounded the crisis, writes Vallis. According to the Employment Policies Institute, 5,200 jobs lost, 100 restaurant closures when you sort of artificially spike the cost of doing business, the cost of labor. And then there's this. A meal in Chicago carries an effective tax rate of 11.75%. So of the $10 billion in sales citywide, $1 billion of it goes back to the city, as well as the RTA, McPier, Cook County, state of Illinois, right? 11.75%. And that doesn't even get you to the commercial property taxes in Cook County, which of course subsidize residential property taxes. So Seems to me like this is part of what makes the city great, makes the city attractive, and part of the other problem is it's not safe, and so people aren't coming downtown. So this seems to me it's mainly a city issue, but again, thinking about this statewide, because the city of Chicago should be an economic engine for the state of Illinois, the things that can be done at the state level to aid the business community at the city level.
Well, absolutely, and I think if you listen to Governor Pritzker, he's always wanting more revenues. That ignores the fact that he's got a massive amount more money today than he did when he started. The budget is ballooned under him, and yet he still wants more. And it's the same for Johnson, right? They all want more money, more revenues. And so at the state level, the key thing that I would do as a governor is, look, there are no more tax hikes because the taxpayers have taken the hit year after year. I mean, it's they call it shared sacrifice. Well, it hasn't been shared; it's only been taxpayers. So you've got to not only stop the tax hikes but reverse them, and things like the gas tax. We have a sales tax on gas and we have the motor fuel tax on gas. Stuff like that should be cut. Paul Vallis did a good job of outlining all those tax hikes that accumulate. You can't do that to people. Everybody, all these government units want their share. They want to put their hand in the pockets, and in the end, it just chases people and businesses out. I was in Lisle talking to a business owner, and he told me the other day. He said every single law that's passed puts more burden on my business, and so he's doing more and more in Tennessee and less here because he just says it's every single one. There's not a single law that's passed that is friendly for him. It's more onerous, not just the taxes, but all the different mandates. So that has to be a big part of it will be a big part of my campaign is to just obsess about jobs and any laws that hurt jobs, that diminish jobs, no way, and only laws that allow companies to thrive and be free. That's what we have to pursue.
TedForIllinois.com is the website. Ted Drosski is the candidate. Ted, thanks as always.
Thank you, Dan.
And he joined us on the turnkey.provincial line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr. Now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over 65 and haven't enrolled yet because you still have coverage at work? Either way, Medicare done correctly will be the best health insurance you will ever have. Imagine having an annual deductible of only $257. There are only two good things about aging, wisdom and Medicare. But to navigate the Medicare maze properly, you need a mentor. Best part? My guidance costs you nothing. Call me. I can help.
If you're tired of calling a bureaucrat at an 800 number to help you navigate Medicare, then you need a local expert on your side. Your own health insurance mentor. C. Stephen Tucker from healthinsurancementors.com is someone I know and trust. He's a 30-year licensed broker who's been educating our listeners for more than a decade. Steve, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Thanks, Dan. They can visit healthinsurancementors.com or call me directly at 630-674-1551. That's 630-674-1551.
Take the journey of living a happy, successful, and meaningful life through God. Listen to It's Time with Dan Lights, Sunday mornings at 9 on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life. AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 8:08, will Jimmy Kimmel's return to the airwaves, at least on some ABC stations, be triumphant? We'll discuss that and other matters entertainment industry related with Christian Toto, host of the Hollywood in Toto podcast, hollywoodintoto.com. And, maybe get some movie and series recommendations from Christian as well. That's at 8:08. It is now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
We're about to hear from President Trump. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. He'll speak to world leaders in New York at the UN General Assembly later this hour.
Why do we still have a UN? It has tremendous potential. The UN is an organization that has the potential to do some great things around the world. but it's not doing it.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the day after some American allies recognized a Palestinian state, which Israel rejects while waging a new offensive in Gaza City against Hamas.
It may take a while, but they're not going to survive the Israeli push.
The president will also meet at the UN with Arab leaders trying to stop the fighting, and he'll sit down with Ukraine's president, still trying to stop Russia's war, and Rubio also tells Fox.
The only leader in the world that has any chance of bringing it to an end is President Trump, which is why he has put more time and energy into it than anybody else.
A potential threat to the UN's been disrupted, a hidden network.
Secret Service officials say the communications network was, quote, well organized and well funded, and found 300 servers at abandoned apartment buildings at more than 5 sites within 35 miles of the UN. They say the network enabled encrypted anonymous communication and was capable of sending 30 million text messages per minute, powerful enough to disable cell phone towers and launch denial of services attacks.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. The trial for the man charged in the second Trump assassination attempt last year is winding down.
Closing arguments will begin first thing this morning, and then the case will go directly to the jury. Ryan Ruth got through all of his witnesses in just one day. Acting as his own attorney, Ruth called on 3.
That's Fox's Dana Marie McNichol outside the federal court in Fort Pierce, Florida. Jimmy Kimmel will be back on TV tonight. Disney lifting the suspension over comments they made about Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, but Sinclair-owned ABC stations will not carry Kimmel's show tonight.
The company announcing different plans, posting, quote, beginning Tuesday night, Sinclair will be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across our ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming.
Fox's Todd Pyro. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 71 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Scattered showers, high of 74 today. Monkeypox cases are spiking in our area. According to reports, the disease begins with flu-like symptoms followed by a bumpy rash. Officials say there have been 83 reported cases of monkeypox since June, 24 of those just in the last month. Medical professionals are urging folks to get their vaccines, saying those with the vaccine tend to have much less severe cases of the disease. More than 85,000 bags of shrimp have been recalled due to unsanitary conditions where the products may have been contaminated with a radioactive element. U.S. Food and Drug Administration say the recall included approximately 49,000 bags of Kroger raw colossal easy peel shrimp, approximately 18,000 bags of Kroger Mercado cooked medium peel tail-off shrimp, and approximately 17,000 bags of Aquastar raw peeled tail-on shrimp skewers. The items were sold between June 12th and September 17th at several retail locations across 31 states, including right here in Illinois. Officials say while the shrimp could be contaminated with that radioactive isotope, so far none of the samples have tested positive. Specific UPC and lot codes as well as photos of the recalled shrimp products can be found at the FDA's website at fda.gov. And the Lincoln Park Zoo has announced that Kapuki is expecting. This will be the third little one for the eastern black rhino. Kapuki's pregnancy was announced yesterday, which was World Rhino Day. Kapuki and her hubby Utunzi are said to be thrilled with the news, and they're looking forward to their little one's arrival this spring. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have a Blue Cross, Blue Shield, PPO, or FEP, you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Learn more and check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads comes up in 2 minutes, but time now for the AM 560 Business Beat.
Hugh Hewitt has a plan to fix healthcare.
It's got to go through regular order. They got to talk about how to fix Obamacare, and when they fix Obamacare, they have to extend tax credits for those who are caught in Obamacare because they lost their job, they lost their plan, they didn't keep their doctor, they didn't keep their plan as President Obama promised. Obamacare is a nightmare and a disaster, but we don't want to leave people on the raft floating out to sea.
The Hugh Hewitt Show, afternoons at 2, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
Does your garage floor look lousy with stained or cracked concrete, or even worse, bad epoxy or paint? Call Comer and Cross Concrete Floors now. During their end-of-the-year sale at 1-800-NEW-FLOOR right now, you'll get the best price of the year guaranteed, starting with $750 off. At Comer and Cross Garage Floor, they are the gold standard, guaranteed to never chip, crack, or show tire lift like epoxy or bad paint. And they'll make it so easy, they're in and out in one day. They'll fix your cracks, the pits, and they fix them perfectly the first time. They're certified, they're uniformed, they're employees. They'll even take the stuff out of your garage for you. Whether you're in Chicago, Milwaukee, or Indiana, now is the time to call them for the best price of the year, guaranteed, starting with $750 off right now during their end-of-the-year garage sale. Here's the number. It's easy. 1-800-NEW-FLOOR. That's 1-800-NEW-FLOOR, or go to COMERcross.com.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft. If that happens, LifeLock gives you the U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims. Your agent handles it all. In fact, they're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. It's nice to have an expert like that on your side. Save up to 40% off your first year with promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Michaela's Mobile Spa, Michaela! Michaela got a quick business insurance quote from Progressive and chose from over 30 customizable coverages. Sure, it helps she's her only employee and does literally everything. But while others would rest on their laurels, Michaela was hard at work saving big. So take that, hypothetical other employee who doesn't exist. Be your own Michaela. See if you could save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
Taking a look at your drive in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with traffic, a service of Turnkey.pro. A rollover crash is blocking all lanes on Eisenhower inbound at 17th Avenue. You're slowly getting by on the right shoulder. Got a 17-minute ride on the inbound Edens Lake Cook to Montrose. Outbound Edens Montrose to Lake Cook, 23 minutes. And a 37-minute ride on the inbound Kennedy Montrose to the Burn Interchange. Kennedy outbound Burn Interchange to Montrose, 17 minutes. A 53-minute ride on the Eisenhower inbound Wolf to the Old Post Office. This rollover crash on the Eisenhower inbound at 17th Avenue has you slowly one by one getting by on that right shoulder. Eisenhower outbound from the Old Post Office to Wolf, 56 minutes. And your ride on the inbound Stevenson 355 to Lakeshore Drive, you're looking at 64 minutes. Traffic is a service of Turnkey. Turnkey is the key to cyber protection. For a limited time, Turnkey is offering all new customers their first month of service free, including Microsoft licensing, antivirus, anti-malware, data backup, plus 24/7 help desk support. Visit turnkey.pro today. I'm KT. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now here's the latest forecast from QC Kinetics.
Today will be cloudy, warm, and humid with a thunderstorm later on reaching a high of 77. Tonight stays cloudy with a few showers expected and a low of 64. Tomorrow expect low clouds and cooler temperatures with a chance of a brief shower or two, reaching a high of 71. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Thank goodness our long national nightmare is over as Jimmy Kimmel returns to the airwaves tonight on some ABC stations. Sinclair, this ABC affiliates that Sinclair owns, no Dice, no Jimmy Kimmel. But Disney has reinstated him. It's not clear what Nexstar is going to do. And thank goodness. I mean, just in the nick of time, because I was really starting to get concerned about distraught Hollywood celebrities. You know, they do so much for us. To enlist them to protect our First Amendment rights, to save our democracy. You know, I mean, didn't Mark Ruffalo do enough in Foxcatcher?
We saw Jimmy Kimmel's show was canceled. We don't know what the reasons are, really. It's very cloudy and murky. I don't understand what's happening right now. My industry doesn't understand what's happening right now. But what they do understand is our freedom of speech is being attacked. I heard Mark Maron today talk about it. He said, you guys were so afraid of being canceled. You went out and you screamed and you yelled about being canceled. But the cancellation was coming from people who didn't like what you had to say. It was coming from people who didn't agree with what you were saying and were speaking out about it. This cancellation is the United States government coming and taking your voice away from you. It is the United States government that is now suppressing the freedom of speech. It is the United States government, not your neighbors, not someone on social media. It is the government doing it now. And that's where we all have to come together. Because authoritarian regimes, fascist regimes have to degrade our freedoms more and more over time until we're living the smallest, the most frightened, the most secretive lives. Think of yourselves living under the Taliban, because that's where we're headed.
Yeah, we got pretty close to the Taliban there over the last week. Measured statement from Mark Ruffalo, as per usual. It's unfortunate because we had such a moment with Ruffalo when he was on Rainn Wilson's podcast, and they actually displayed a capacity for human compassion in the direction of somebody they disagree with politically, talking about Charlie Kirk, and had a nice moment where I think they generally both decried violence as the means to political ends. But I suppose you can only keep someone with Trump derangement syndrome from their derangement for so long. Angelina Jolie as well. I mean, didn't Angelina Jolie do enough for us with the Kung Fu Panda franchise? Does she too have to save our democracy and protect our free speech rights?
I love my country, and but I don't at this time recognize my country. And I think that's, but I've always lived internationally. I've always,
global citizen.
My family's international. My friends, my life, my worldview is equal, united, international. So anything, anywhere that divides or, of course, limits personal expressions and freedoms and from anyone, I think is very dangerous.
Yeah, global citizen, maybe really a cosmic citizen, because it sounds like she stands above this mortal coil upon which we all otherwise reside. But I mean, since she's equal U.S. and equal international, she may want to peruse, I don't know, Western Europe, much less Islamic theocracies, when it comes to the discussion of freedom of thought and expression. But, again, she's done enough. I mean, Changeling was enough. We don't need her to do more. It's unfair to ask her to do more. For more on all this, please be joined by Christian Toto, host of the Hollywood in Toto podcast, HollywoodInToto.com. Christian, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Where do I start with this? I mean, where do I start? I'll start. Let's see. Mark Ruffalo just acknowledged cancel culture and said it was no biggie. Can you? I mean, let's start there.
Right.
Did you hear what he had to say? And people were being canceled because they had the wrong thoughts, and he didn't give a bleep about that for 8 years, didn't care, and just mentions it now in passing. What an absolute phony and fraud. And as you intimated, listen, I've always given Angelina Jolie a lot of slack. I've always thought, she seems more thoughtful. She's not as hyperbolic. She travels the world. She actually puts herself in harm's way to help people. No, she's an idiot. She's just an idiot. And she's an idiot because she's Miss International And she's ignoring the 60-minute segment where German police officers ransack homes trying to arrest you if you had the wrong thought on social media. And, of course, we know what's going on in England with social media posts. I mean, my goodness, if you're so thoughtful and you're so international and you don't have a syllable to spare about that. I just read a huge article yesterday at Hollywood and Toto that just absolutely eviscerates all these celebrities who are now the new free speech warriors who didn't say boo as the government was shutting us down again. And I'm apoplectic about this. They are such frauds. And I love Hollywood. I love the industry in theory. I made my entire career about covering Hollywood and movies and film and TV. I'm just exhausted by these people.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. You love the artistry. It goes with the music industry. I mean, the Broadway. I mean, a lot of, entertainment generally, sports even to a large extent. I mean, you love their artistry and this talent that they have, but they prove themselves. They sort of really do their own brand damage when they speak about things of which they know very little. I mean, the other thing that Mark Ruffalo said, in addition to, as you said, sort of just dismissing cancel culture when it was people he didn't like, he sort of pretended it was just like corporate. It was social media companies making those decisions. And of course, we know very well, the Twitter files, that it was government using cutouts to do what the government couldn't legitimately do, and that's the same thing as the government doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the ignorance is off the charts. Listen, here's the thing. They didn't speak up during cancel culture. One, because they were afraid they would get canceled. Two, they were maybe not as up to speed on it because their news feeds are so limited and so restricted because they're only listening to like the HuffPos of the world. And three, they couldn't blame it on Donald Trump or some GOP figure.
Yeah.
They couldn't point their finger at their own selves and say, geez, we're responsible for that. That's why they let it go. Three different reasons, fear being number one.
And with respect to Kimmel, I mean, I said when we were talking about it last week, Brendan Carr made a mistake. I like him. I think he is somebody who has a very firm understanding of First Amendment freedoms and all of our freedoms, and is respectful of those, understands Supreme Court jurisprudence on the First Amendment. But by intimating that regulatory action was possible, he made a mistake. That was the wrong play. He should have said nothing, and he should say nothing now that Kimmel's back on the air. And let him be. I mean, let Kimmel do what he's going to do and Disney do what they're going to do. Sinclair and Nexstar can make their own decisions. But the idea of facilitating this phony, professional martyrdom that is being advanced about Jimmy Kimmel, you're aiding and abetting this silliness.
Yeah, I couldn't believe. I mean, his comments were extremely ill-advised. There's no proof at all that this was a cause and effect. The optics certainly are lousy, and he shouldn't be saying that. And so that, there is a legal argument based on public airwaves and what he was doing. I understand that, but we really haven't gone there for quite some time. It's a legitimate slippery slope if we do. And we just had 4 years of administration that was just absolutely couldn't wait to suppress speech. I mean, what happens in 2028 if we set this precedent and then there's a flip of, parties in power? You're going to see this on steroids. So many, many reasons why that was a very, very foolish thing to say.
Do you have any expectation that Kimmel will come on tonight and say, what I said last week was incorrect and I was wrong to say it?
I think he's going to dance around that expertly, as far as he can't say, I'm sorry, he can't say I was wrong. But then again, I don't know how he was able to negotiate to get back on the air. I mean, he's dealing with Disney. Disney wanted him. Well, I guess maybe the needle threading is he won't apologize and he won't double down.
He won't say anything.
I think the double down was the real part that drove Disney execs crazy. Like, not only will you not apologize for something, but I want to point out, I mentioned this on my site, but Megyn Kelly did the Wayback Machine, I think it was like a year and a half ago, where Jimmy Kimmel literally said that we have a team of fact checkers here who go over our monologue.
Yep.
And on the rare occasions I make a mistake, I will apologize. I mean, just play that in a loop. And the fact that no journalist in the country will dig up that very easily discoverable bit of information, and it took a new media personality to do it, it just says everything. I'm reading Variety and the Hollywood Reporter. I mean, it's like ABC PR. I mean, they should all take the week off. They're not necessary.
Yeah,
Just sit down.
We play that on the show too. In addition to all of the celebrations when other corporate decisions they liked came down, you know, getting rid of Tucker, getting rid of Roseanne Barr, and you know, and deplatforming Trump on social media. All that stuff they celebrated, and it was, you know, a part of saving our democracy and ending hate speech and misinformation and disinformation and so on and so forth. This corporate decision, and you know, we're this close to living under the Taliban. I mean, this is the basically the intellect and the stability you're dealing with emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, and also, how do you square Trump as Hitler, the worst person in the world? And by the way, we just brought Jimmy Kimmel back after a week vacation. I mean, he's so all-powerful and demonic and so authoritarian that he lets this happen. Ooh,
yeah,
wow.
Right.
I didn't know he was so bad at being a dictator. I mean, they don't even think about that. They won't square that. They won't discuss that. They won't approach that.
You know, and part of this though too is the violence piece of it. You know, Charlie Kirk's executive producer made the point that, you know, the real harm in what Jimmy Kimmel said last week is it sends the message that, you know, if you take out one of the conservatives, one of the people we collectively hate, and we do hate, if you do that, then we here at the top of the food chain in the media with our big blowtorches, we will cover for you.
Yeah.
And we see more of this bellicose, to be generous, rhetoric coming. Keith Oberman tweeting in the direction or Xing in the direction of Scott Jennings, "Your next MFer, keep mugging for the camera." And then he quickly deleted that tweet because it must have registered. He had a fleeting moment of clarity that it sounded like he was calling for Scott Jennings' death. Then he quickly deleted those tweets. Of course, somebody got screenshots before he did. And then followed up with, "Now we get the fascists off real TV. That mean your career is next, Jennings. Send a tape to Real America's Voice, but keep mugging for the camera, amateur." He just wants to get him off CNN because, again, they're all for free speech and debate and so on and so forth. And anybody that would be deplatformed is, you know, a danger to our state as a free society.
You know, I really, really want to ignore Keith Oberman. I think he's just had a mental break of some kind.
Yeah.
Having said that, he just seems rather representative of too many people on the left. And what you see that scares me is that there's no mechanism, there's no movement to say on the left, disown him. I don't know what happened to him. And people like him. I mean, you know, Charlie Kirk is murdered, and days later, the Jasmine Crockett's of the world are just spreading ghoulish misinformation without any journalist saying, "Excuse me, can you back up those facts? Do you stand by them? We're going to have a team look through them and see if these horrible things you're saying are actually accurate. And if they're not, we're going to have you back on the show. Is that okay?" I mean, there is. I think you really touched on the real big through line through all this is violence. It's absolute violence. And you know, if you're Jimmy Kimmel went on the air after the election and cried, wept in front of us, and described a scenario that would be doomsday. And of course, nothing like that is happening. He's just a fool and a fraud. But again, if you're someone like a Keith Oberman with a little bent for violence, I don't think he is. I think he's a blowhard. We're just seeing it in real action. We're seeing people taking shots at ABC affiliates,
yes,
and then getting bailed out the day after. I mean, it's incomprehensible what's going on, and there will be more violence, and there will be more explaining it away and rationalizing it until I don't know what we need to have. I just don't know what we need to have. And I don't even get so dark with it, but how could you not get dark with these opinions and this lack of journalism integrity is just off the charts.
And the guy that was arrested for shooting into that ABC affiliate's offices in Sacramento, we find now after he gets picked up by the FBI after he walks in California, of course he did, that he had a hit list with Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi on it.
And he walks. It wasn't just some lunatic who got drunk and shot up a station in a peak of fury. He had a plan, and he started the plan, and he walks.
And where are all of those celebrities that signed that to please put Jimmy Kimmel back, not please, put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air or else letter? Where are they rallying to the defense of Morrissey, who had to cancel 2 concerts, one in Connecticut, one in Boston, because of credible death threats. And, and Morrissey's been outspoken against the left and cancel culture for several years, and don't think that's lost on those on the left.
Or the artists like Michael Rappaport and Manisyahu who have had their gigs canceled because they're Jewish. And that gets memory hold. I'm one of the few entertainment journalists who's been aggressively covering that subject for quite some time now. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just doing my job. Why can't they do theirs? Why isn't Variety talking about that? That happens again and again and again. They don't care. They just don't care.
Mm-hmm. What is your, do you have, since you're sort of in the industry and you cover it as with as much detail as you do you have a sense, because there's all sorts of theories about what's really going on with the Jimmy Kimmel thing. It was Nexstar and Sinclair looking for a reason to dump him, and this was provided. He's hemorrhaging money just like Colbert was. No, he's not. This is Nexstar trying to sidle up to the Trump administration because they have that merger with Tegna they want to get done. There's all sorts of theories about what's really going on with Kimmel and what his future is. Do you have a perspective?
Well, I don't think Kimmel's contract, and I think it ends maybe next year. And he's really danced around the idea of continuing with the gig. All I can say is if The Late Show was losing millions and millions of dollars and it has bigger ratings than Kimmel, and just looking at the shows, they seem similar-ish. I'm going to guess that Colbert has a bigger budget. I just don't think this economically makes sense. I think, obviously, late-night TV revenue has been crashing in recent years. I think this will – once the furor dies down, I think his ratings will start to sink again, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he'll just sort of start to attract a bigger group of liberals. But I just think everything is untenable here. And I don't think anyone's really thinking long-term. I think this is all emotional. And I think that Disney freaked out with all their fellow stars freaking out because it's important to them, even though it's not important to the culture or us. So, yeah, I don't have a firm grip on it. I just think this is a dying format. He's chased away many, many people. He's no longer funny and charming and interesting and entertaining. And I don't – if he wants to sign a new contract that's much, much less, I guess that's an option too.
All right, on happier thoughts before we let you go, got to ask you, a series and or a movie recommendation. Have you seen Black Rabbit yet?
No, I haven't. I'm actually seeing a movie tonight, which is getting lots of buzz, One Battle After Another, the new Leonardo DiCaprio movie, which I hear is extraordinarily political and in a way that maybe conservatives won't be too giddy about. But, yeah, it's been a tepid time at the movies. There's not a ton that I could thoroughly throw my arms around. I enjoyed Weapons immensely. I thought that was a very good movie.
Weapons. Weapons, though, is, for those who like that genre, which I do, that needs to come with a little caveat. That is not for the faint of heart. There's a couple scenes that are not for the faint of heart.
Oh, absolutely. No. It's funny. I've been so upset with the Kirk shooting and the reaction to it. I've actually been watching old Modern Family reruns because I need a break, and it's the funniest show in the world, and it's so densely funny and so beautifully arranged, and every performance is so pristine. I have to say, I needed some sort of it's my emotional support system. I love it, so that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, and I did see Nobody too, where you talked about that last time you were on, and your review is exactly right on. It's it's what you would expect, but it was entertaining. It's sort of like Brad Pitt in F1. It's sort of what I expected based on other movies in that sort of genre, but it was very entertaining. He did a good job. It was it's worth seeing.
Yeah, and the big twist of the first film can't be replicated, so you can have diminished returns. So there's no way you can do it.
Yeah, no for Nobody too. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. And it's always nice to see a local boy here from Chicago, Bob Odenkirk, do well.
It's shocking that he's so good at that gig. It's an action star. He doesn't look like it.
Yeah, right. Christian Toto, host of the Hollywood in Toto podcast, Hollywood in Toto, TOTO.com, HollywoodInToto.com. Christian, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Attention investors with a 401k, IRA, or retirement account. The dollar has lost over 25% of its value in the past 5 years, and it's only going to get worse. Are you prepared for what's about to happen next? We are Advantage Gold, the #1 customer-rated gold IRA company in America, and we are helping Americans prepare for the great de-dollarization by diversifying their portfolios with physical precious metals. We've partnered with former chief economist of the IMF, Kenneth Rogoff, to give away his latest book called Our Dollar, Your Problem, a must-read for investors. Call 800-741-GOLD, and we'll rush a free copy of Our Dollar, Your Problem to your doorstep and include our special gold IRA investing kit, valued at $49. The dollar is losing value fast. Call 800-741-GOLD now to get your free copy of Our Dollar, Your Problem and our free gold IRA investing kit. Supplies are limited. Consult your tax and financial professional before investing. Call 800-741-4653. That's 800-741-GOLD.
8 for Women is hosting their annual dinner on Thursday, September 25th, and you're invited. We're gathering at the beautiful Union League Club downtown. That's 65 West Jackson Boulevard for what's always a really special night. This year's speaker is Dr. Robert Royal, who founded the Faith and Reason Institute in Washington. He has some fascinating insights on faith, culture, and the issues we're all talking about. Here's how the evening unfolds. At 5 o'clock, you can meet Dr. Robert Lawler, our medical director, an amazing person with some amazing stories. Then we'll have drinks and good conversation at 5:30, followed by dinner and the program at 6:30. It's really about supporting women in our community. Getting tickets is easy. Just go to helpaidforwomen.org. That's helpaidforwomen.org. You can grab dinner tickets, try your luck with drawing tickets, or if you're feeling generous, check out the sponsorship options. September 25th, Aid for Women's annual dinner. Hope to see you there. Visit helpaidforwomen.org to join us.
Business owners, now's the time for your business to make the move to a locally owned business bank. Hi, Mike Gallagher here to let you know that you don't have to look far. Signature Bank was founded in Chicago with a simple mission to help companies like yours grow, succeed, and thrive. Their decisions are made locally by a terrific team that knows your name, cares about your business, and invests in your success. That's why Signature Bank is my bank. I'm a customer. As business owners, they knew that local, family-owned businesses were not getting the help they needed or deserved. So I invite you to reach out to my friends at Signature Bank today. Write the number down. Remember this phone number, Signature Bank, 773-467-5630, and learn all about this great bank, 773-467-5630, or visit them online at signaturebank.bank. That's signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank makes commercial banking personal. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 8:38, former Bears quarterback Eric Kramer. He's dealt with some real tragedy in his life and some near misses. He's got a new podcast, The Quarterback and the Con Artist. You'll hear Eric Kramer's story over the last 15 years or so. That's memorializing the quarterback and the con artist at 8:38 when we visit with him. Now it's time to check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 70 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Scattered showers, high of 74 today. President Trump has expressed interest in sending in National Guard troops to Chicago to help limit crime, even mentioning those plans at Charlie Kirk's memorial service this past Sunday. Meanwhile, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson expressed concerns, saying it would be unnecessary to deploy the troops. Monkeypox cases are spiking in our area. According to reports, the disease begins with flu-like symptoms followed by a bumpy rash. Officials say there have been 83 reported cases of monkeypox since June, with 24 of those happening just in the last month. And more than 85,000 bags of shrimp have been recalled due to unsanitary conditions where products may have been contaminated with a radioactive element. Officials say while the shrimp could be contaminated with a radioactive isotope, so far none of the samples that were tested positive. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Join AM 560 on Thursday, October 2nd in Glen Ellen for a conservative conversation. An evening of insight, inspiration, and ideas on how conservatives can unite around shared values to advance a common common agenda. Speakers will include Pastor Lorenzo Sewell of 180 Church in Detroit, Jeannie Ives, and John Anthony, with each bringing a unique perspective on faith, policy, and community leadership. Get your tickets today at 560theanswer.com/conversation. That's 560theanswer.com/conversation.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, their award-winning tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Find the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief today for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
The Dinesh D'Souza Podcast.
This is the important thing to recognize about Trump is he's a very transactional guy. Trump will impose a penalty, and if you come to him and say, well, let's make a deal. This is the actual opposite of socialism. This is called cutting a deal to make something work. And I think that's all that goes through Trump's mind.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza Podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
My friend Paula just remodeled her kitchen. I feel bad. It's so bland.
Yeah. Everyone's using the same templated designs these days or just refacing cabinets.
Let's check out Forever Remodeling. They do full and custom kitchen remodels from the ground up, just for us.
It'd be nice to have a kitchen that's truly ours.
Exactly.
Don't get the same kitchen design as everyone else. Visit Forever Remodeling today at foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com. And tell them AM560 sent you.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Destination Retirement with Robert Kuhn, Sunday mornings at 11, sponsored by Kuhn Capital Partners in Naperville.
Taking a look at your drive in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with traffic, a service of Discover, an 18-minute ride on the inbound Edens Lake Cook to Montrose, outbound Edens and Montrose to Lake Cook, 21 minutes. A 42-minute ride on the inbound Kennedy Montrose to the Burn Interchange. Center lane is blocked. A broken down vehicle inbound at Damon Avenue. Kennedy outbound from the Burn Interchange to Montrose, 16 minutes. Traffic still recovering from a crash. You got a 39-minute ride. Eisenhower inbound Wolf to the Old Post Office. Outbound Eisenhower from the Old Post Office to Wolf, 36 minutes. Your ride on the inbound Stevenson 355 to Lakeshore Drive, 52 minutes, and a 32-minute travel time. Dan Ryan inbound 95th to the Burn Interchange. Guess what? Discover's accepted at 99% of places that take care of credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. I'm KT. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now here's a look at the latest forecast from QC Kinetics.
Today will be cloudy, warm, and humid with a thunderstorm in the afternoon, reaching a high of 77. Tonight stays cloudy with a few showers expected, dropping to a low of 64. Tomorrow, expect low clouds and slightly cooler temperatures with a chance of a brief shower or two as we reach a high of 71. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Yeah, still in a celebratory mood over the Bears' first win of the season on Sunday. But that's not to talk about the Bears-Dallas game. It's to talk to our next guest, Eric Kramer. Of course, everybody of a certain age remembers Eric Kramer in the NFL generally and with the Bears for 4 years specifically. And even if you're not of a certain age, if you're a football fan, you're going to know who Eric Kramer is. He had a dozen years in the league, which is no easy feat. So I watched this interview that he and a friend of his named Anna Durgan gave to Forbes magazine about this new podcast series, The Quarterback and the Con Artist. And, you know, I was just struck by the challenges, to say the least, that Eric Kramer and his family have been through since his time with the Bears and since his time in football, really over the last 15 years, I'd say, just based on what I gleaned from their conversation. And he seems like a real decent guy that's been through a lot, but a lot that a lot of other families have been through too, or some aspects of what he's been through, other families have certainly grappled with: addiction, suicide, and being conned. And so I respect the fact that he's come forward to put together this podcast series and provide I'm sure for him, in part, excruciating detail, and to do so in the interest of trying to help others avoid some of the mistakes that were made with respect to the people he let in around him, or the people that were able to get in around him and take advantage of him. So with that, former starting quarterback for the Bears, founder of Mental Health Touchdown and the Eric Kramer Passing Camp, suicide survivor as of August 18th, 2015. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Author of The Ultimate Comeback and host of the series I just mentioned, the podcast series, The Quarterback and the Con Artist. Also, a note, Saturday, September 27th, that would be this Saturday, from 7:30 to 10:30 at the Imagine Theater in Royal Oak, Michigan. He's having a fundraising event for his foundation, the Mental Health Touchdown Foundation. And I guess you can get information about that event at Eric Kramer, that's ERIK, Kramer, 12.com, erickramer12.com for information on the fundraiser for his foundation this coming Saturday in Royal Oak, Michigan. Eric Kramer, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. What an efficient introduction. Thank you.
Well, I try. I try to make most of our time. People want to hear from you, not me, so let's get through some of it. Listen, I think for those who don't know, people want to know what a successful professional athlete, great family, what led you down this dark path to attempting to take your own life a decade ago?
Well, hard to say where it began, but what did happen was back in 2011, on October 30th, my oldest son, Griffin, died of an overdose. And that just began a downward spiral that was really eventually tough for me to get out of. And not long after Griffin passed away, my mom, who had cancer already, passed away about 8 months later in July of 2012. Not much long after that, my dad had some untreated acid reflux that eventually turned into esophageal cancer. So that was about a 3 or so year downward spiral for him. And it just was the culmination of, I think, those three events, and feeling at that age, I think I was 52-ish, something like that, and had this overwhelming sense that, those in my life were leaving, not coming. And so that took me down a road that I never want to go down again, where, like, as you mentioned, on August 18, 2015, I attempted to take my own life.
And it just I mean, for instructional purposes almost, like when you were at any point when you were going down that path before you got to the attempt, I mean, were there interventions? Did you even recognize you were going down that path and seek, counsel or try to lean on friends, or how did it, just if you have any more color on that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah. I had been seeing a therapist after Griffin had passed away for, I'd say, at least a couple years. So I had never had any depression about his passing necessarily. Sadness, like I've never felt before, for sure. And, it just eventually there did come a time where I was driving down the road one day, not far from my house, and I just remember this little, like a switch going on. Like, okay, here comes depression, and there's not a lot you can do about it.
So you attempt to take your own life with a gun. You survive, but you have a traumatic brain injury, and then so what was the recovery from that like?
Well, that's where it would be good to have Anna on here, because I don't remember any of that. What that recovery was like. I've since talked to her excuse me, Anna and others about. So that night, I was not expected to live, apparently, and my brain had begun to swell up, and they had what do I say? They had taken part of my head off
to relieve the pressure.
My forehead, and then and as a result of that, the brain swelling, didn't think I would go make it through the night. And of course, obviously I did, but from there it was literally like becoming a baby all over again. I had to learn everything, how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to go to the bathroom on my own, and just all the basics of life.
And how long was that recovery?
I'd say the whole recovery process itself was probably about 4-ish years. The initial part like that was easily a couple. I remember going to, so initially I was at Northridge Hospital, and Dr. Mark Kerner, who I actually knew beforehand, was the operating surgeon that night. And so I went from Northridge Hospital. I believe I was put in an induced coma for about, 5 or 6 weeks. And then I was taken to UCLA Brain Trauma Center for a couple more weeks. And then from there, I went to a place more near where I live called CNS, or Center for Neuroskills. And I actually lived there. They have 2 houses and then a separate structure that's the brain rehab clinic, which I had probably driven past a million times in my life and never knew that's what that was. And anyway, so I remember going there, and I would spend all day at the clinic. And I remember on several occasions not knowing I needed to go to the bathroom until I was going to the bathroom.
And so then during this recovery period, when does Courtney Baird enter and tell us who she is?
So Courtney was somebody that I was once friends with her brother. Courtney didn't live in California. And from time to time, she would show up, and only because I was friends with Dave did I even know there was a person named Courtney Baird. And then not long after Griffin passed away, I'd say there was, for probably about 3 weeks-ish or so, my house was flooded in a good way with people. And, Griffin was in high school. And so it was during his football season. And so a lot of the moms would bring, drop off kind of this nonstop amount of food. And I had people not only from around the neighborhood and friends and family, but people from out of town. And then it all kind of went away. And it was on a weekend morning, and there was a knock at my door, and it was Courtney Baird literally coming in to say, I'm so sorry. And we began to hang out a little bit, only because I had this overwhelming feeling that Griffin passed away not knowing how much I loved him. And the reason I say that is because about a year-ish, maybe 8-9 months before he passed away, my wife and I were separated at the time, which we're now divorced. And Griffin had chosen to move in with Marshawn full time. And when he left, so did Dylan. And so, and Courtney, out of the blue, goes, "Oh, well, Marshawn used to have me come over and bring Griffin to, pick him up and bring him to these, meetings." He used to talk about you all the time. And no, he didn't. And that was just her way of sort of getting in. And so eventually, we just began hanging out a little bit, just really talking about that. And then eventually that developed into sort of an on-again, more off-again relationship in which I broke up with Courtney for the last time of several in January of 2015. And so there was no Courtney Baird. And when I, shot myself and then started this process of rehab, she inserted herself back into the picture. And I'm sure quickly ascertained that I had forgotten that we broke up.
I mean, from, I know you don't remember some the early parts of the recovery period, understandably so, yeah. But your friend Anna Durgan, and were there others around you that sort of filled in the blanks of after during your recovery period, when she enters, and then how that, how her presence in your life developed? Were there people that, were acting as, protectors of you at that point?
Yeah. Anna was the main one. But my aunt got involved as well, my mom's sister, Patrice, and several friends that Anna had recruited to let know that that Courtney was stealing from me, including my son Dylan, who at the time, he's 27 now, so this would have been back in 2016. But at that time, so what Courtney was doing was basically using my debit and credit cards. And she actually forged 4 checks. But you could have told me that, and they did, to my face. And I would have had this blank stare like, oh, okay. And so
you didn't have the capacity to appreciate what was going on at that point.
That's correct. I mean, $5 million, you could have told me, it could have been 5 cents or 5 million. I couldn't, the two didn't connect at all for me.
Yeah.
And so, guess who knew that? Courtney, of course. And everybody else did too, but only one person stole. And then, so that created a whole big, situation where Anna went to the police, and there's a great detective named David Linkshite who had all but wrapped up the case. And Courtney waltzes into his office one day and confesses. This is, I don't know, end of October or something in 2016.
So you're just a year into your recovery from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so apparently David Linkshite was wrapping up some, search warrants and whatever. And so the district attorney at that time decides not to prosecute.
And why was that?
3 weeks. Well, when people are knuckleheads. Do you know why they're knuckleheads? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
she gets paid to do a job that she doesn't do. So,
but there was no explanation given in terms of why she declined to prosecute.
Well, when someone's a knucklehead, do they go, "Oh, it's because I'm a knucklehead"? No, she's not going to take responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, 3 weeks later, Courtney and I are married, which eventually gets annulled. But it took me $100 and some odd $1,000 to get annulled, and anyway, it's just,
So wait a second. So she gets a pass on confessing to the police, prosecutor declines charge, and then somehow she engineers marrying you. Who would marry you knowing you don't have the capacity to sign on to a marriage license?
Courtney Baird.
Right. And this was what, like before a justice of the peace or something?
Yeah, it was Santa Barbara courthouse.
Uh-huh.
So, it's and so Anna, of course, is tuned into all this.
Your friend.
And
right?
Yep. And so what she found out that is you can do is basically the assistant district attorney at that time, she punts the ball over to the conservatorship court system.
And is this because Anna wants to be your conservator so she can stop?
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. Anna wanted Courtney arrested.
Okay.
So basically what happened was the Bill Chin, who was at that time the assistant district attorney in charge of my case, she punched the ball over to the conservatorship court system thinking that, once Eric's conserved, then, Courtney will go away. Well, what Anna figured out was if I was conserved of both the estate and the person, that's all you need to annul the marriage. Courtney would have been kicked out of the house, and eventually that marriage would have been annulled.
If the state would have intervened there. Is that what you're saying? The conservative,
No.
the court would have intervened to protect you.
If the court assigned a
conservator.
No, the court assigned a court-appointed attorney.
Yeah, okay.
To represent me.
Right.
Who himself was out of his mind. So he fought against me being conserved of the estate, which the judge granted, despite his pleas and attempts to not have that happen. Then, and my aunt was my conservator. Then the next hearing is scheduled, which we all show up for the conservatorship of the person. Well, guess who steps in the way of that?
Courtney.
The court-appointed attorney.
Okay.
This knucklehead tells the attorney representing my aunt, Jonathan Cole, that, hey, let's not mess with this, conservatorship of the person. Let's just go ahead and get a post-nuptial agreement. So that guy cost me another at least $350,000 to $400,000 in additional theft and legal fees to all these other lawyers.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but I mean, that's a great setup to listen to the rest of the podcast. The Quarterback and the Con Artist is a podcast series. Eric Kramer, his friend Anna Durgan. You can get it at Apple and all the podcast platforms. Eric Kramer, former Bears quarterback, founder of the Mental Health Touchdown Foundation. And again, this Saturday at 7:30, Imagine Theater, Royal Oak, Michigan, is a Mental Health Touchdown Foundation fundraising event. EricKramer12.com, EricKramer12.com for more information on the fundraiser. And again, the Quarterback and the Con Artist is the podcast series. You want to check that out to get in to all the details and nuances that we didn't have time for this morning. Eric Kramer, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you're doing better.
Appreciate that. Dan, thank you for your time and your interest.
Eric Kramer joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning on Chicago's Morning Answer. Appreciate your listenership and all the callers, as well as our guests, as always. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 a.m. It is now 9 a.m., AM 560 WIND, Chicago.